'em up, drink 'em down, whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well, welcome, my friends, and I do mean my friends, to this fine radio program, this being Smoking and Toasting. It's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We have all of those things on hand today, and we have not one but two very special guests, one of whom will make, I'm sure, a rather grand appearance later. But in the meantime, oh, and thank you, we appreciate it. We got some glasses coming over so we can do some spirit sampling, because as you can see, there are spirits spread out on this table already, and this is going to be a good one. We're live at
Look at how beautiful that is.
Yeah, we're live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston. B&B is also available in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, and I can look across the parking lot and see B&B Lemon, which is also a really fun place to hang out, and they're the sponsors of the show, so thank you. We're glad to be here. We'll be enjoying some cigars, and we're excited to have, on his return to the show, Greg Doxakis. Greg, am I pronouncing your last name right?
You're a singer, right? But I was excited at first, but now I'm feeling, I don't know. I don't like the idea of opening for Jeremiah.
Oh, well.
You know?
No one does.
He should be opening for me.
He's closing the show for you. That's what it is.
He should do like 10 minutes of God knows what, then say, and let's hear it for our man.
Yeah, well, you know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like when David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar toured together after both of them were gone.
Did they really? I have no recollection of that.
After both of them were gone from Van Halen,
Neither do they.
Yeah, they actually did.
It was the Eddie Van Halen Broken Hearts Club there. Huh?
Well, they did what they called the Sam and Dave tour, and they came out, and so it was like one show. Roth would open, and Hagar would close, and the next show, vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah. At least they managed to agree on that. That was about all, I think.
So the next show that I'm on, I want Jeremiah here at least 2 hours early. Okay?
Yes, he'll be here early, and then you can make the grand entrance. Well, and really, your entrance is much more grand, because you're the guy that's brought the bottle. Right?
You can get Jeremiah here on time. You just have to tell him that our start time is 12:15.
Yeah. That's right. And he says 12:15 p.m. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Greg, I noticed, by the way, that Jeremiah refers to you as Dox.
Yes, they all call me Dox.
Everybody just calls you Dox.
It's just easier that way.
D-O-X. Okay.
Though here's the thing, though. I have a nephew that's he's pitching for the Aggies right now.
Oh, nice.
He's doing very, very well, and they're calling him Dox, so I may lose the actual title to him.
Uh-oh.
He may be Dox. He may be the real Dox.
He may be Dox Senior or something. Yeah. Uncle Dox.
Now, the last time I saw you on this show, I was actually in Florida.
Yes.
And we were Skyping myself.
That's right. You were on Skype for that show.
Yes, that was.
Which means that I got to taste some amazing things that you did not get to taste.
I was a little jealous.
You were enjoying some good craft beer, as I recall.
That's right. You didn't try anything last time.
Yeah.
No, I feel bad because I brought dummy bottles this time because I just assumed you tried everything. We're just going to talk about stuff, right?
Ian.
You got a beer, though. That's good.
Sad Ian.
Wow. Well, again, Jeremiah
just brought the boxes.
Jeremiah can make as grand an entrance as he wants. You've made the grandest because you began just before we went live by putting the bottles on the table. So
I'm. This is me peacocking here. I got to do something to bring attention to me, right?
It's good. Yes,
and
it's working, by the way.
I brought a little bit of everything. I brought some of our Plantation Rum and some of our, of course, our Piaf Rum Cognac. Of course, we also do the Citadel gins, but we wanted to stick with the brown spirits today.
So Maison Ferrand is a pretty large company, isn't it? How many different spirits do you guys make?
Well, we're a growing company, a growing concern, as some may say. We do. It's getting bigger every day, and you're talking about SKUs of various products. I mean, it's. I've lost count. We got like over 30 or so, but we have our four main labels are going to be, of course, the Piaf Rum Cognac, which was what Maison Ferrand was built on. From there, Citadel was born of that. That's our gin. We make in the exact same stills we make in the Piaf Rum Cognac. From there, Plantation was born. That's our line of rums that's made all over the Caribbean. We have, of course, our distillery in Barbados, which is the West Indies Rum Distillery. And we have two in Jamaica that we're in partnership with the Jamaican government. One is Long Pond, the other one is Clarendon. But of course, we also have the Mathilde liqueurs. We do a full line of French liqueurs, all natural. We go ranges anywhere from the classic orange cognac base to the framboise, which is raspberry. The cassis, but our most popular right now is peach.
Peach.
It's doing very well in cocktails across the country.
Well, I'm sure I mentioned this to you last time you were on the show, but my wife and I keep you guys at least moving to some degree in business because we are both big fans, my wife especially, of your pineapple rum, the Plantation Pineapple Rum.
The Stiggins. It's Plantation Stiggins Fancy Pineapple Rum.
Plantation Stiggins Fancy Pineapple Rum. And what's great about it is that it's not just like it's not flavored rum. It's rum that was matured in barrels. Explain it to me where it gets the because there's actual pineapple, but there's actual pineapple wood, I guess, involved in this, right?
No pineapple wood. What it is we take a small Victorian. Well, let me tell you what it all started from.
Okay.
So David Wondrich, a cocktail historian, he wrote Imbibe, he wrote Punch. He is a good friend of Alexander Gabriel, our owner of our company and our master blender, and also just a good friend of Maison Franc in general. And he's worked with us on many of our spirits. Whenever there's a spirit that we want to create that requires a little bit of research, that's hard to research, he, being that historian, has been very helpful in finding the notes and direction of which way to make these spirits. He helped us create our 1840 Pierre Franc cognac. He helped us create our dry curacao, our Pierre Franc dry curacao, and he was the inspiration behind the Stiggins Fancy Rum. There was a book that he was reading. It was the Charles Dickens Pickwick Papers.
Oh,
it's like I'm popping my peas. The Pickwick Papers.
Pickwick Papers.
Pickwick Papers.
Doug Harris would be so disappointed in me right now for popping my peas. So,
you join the club. Doug Harris has been disappointed in me for years. So there's just, that's just how it goes down.
So
love you, Doug.
So in reading this, there was a character named Reverend Stiggins who preached the evils of alcohol, but at the same time was known throughout the book to be drinking pineapple rum, and that's just delicious hypocrisy. You can't resist that. So we wanted to do some research, and we found out that pineapple rum actually was a delicacy back in Victorian times, and so we wanted to see if we could recreate what they may have been drinking. And thanks to David Wondrich's help in doing some research, we come to find that, again, it was a delicacy in that time. We did research with over 100 varieties of pineapple, and as coincidentally, the one that worked. Oh, wait. Let's.
Wait.
What's
the
happening
grand
here?
entrance has arrived. Yes.
This is like when Don Rickles used to show up on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Like when they'd all be talking, he was walking out. Everything would stop.
Yes.
Welcome, Jeremiah Butler.
What's going on?
Nice to have you here. So he was filling us in on how the pineapple rum, what the origin was of the Stiggins.
Awesome. Please, I want to hear this story as well.
So what ended up was we, after trying 100 different varieties of pineapple, we settled on Victorian pineapples. That's just a coincidence.
Victorian.
Small, very juicy, full of flavor, and we use those. And the way we pineapple the rum is we take our 3-star rum, which is going to be a blend of Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad rums.
Right.
We take our original dark rum, which is going to be a blend of Barbados and Jamaican rum. We take the skin of the pineapples, we put that inside their Plantation 3-star, we redistill that in the Pierre Franc cognac barrels.
Nice.
Cognac stills, we redistill it in the cognac stills, and we put the meat of the pineapple inside the original dark and let that sit. We blend them together, put them back inside the Pierre Franc cognac barrels like all Plantation rum is aged, or double aged, and then we have our pineapple rum. So a lot of work goes into it.
When you redistill, like, it's just the raw pineapple skin in the bottom of the still? Do you re-ferment it?
No, nothing re-ferment. It's you just the skins inside the actual
just
rum
to get like
redistilled.
the pith, the bitter.
Yep.
That wow.
If you want, we'll call it the pineapple lees. If you
Sure,
want,
sure.
What I love about that rum, and I will tell you, it's the only spirit I can think of, other than maybe bottles of like champagne or sparkling wine, that we always at my house have at least 3 of in the bar, just in case we go in and can't find it. Because it's when I say it's a regular, we drink it very regularly. But what I love about it is there's nothing about it that's sweet. When I first tried it, I was expecting a pineapple
That
sweetness
sweet
to it,
pineapple
and I was expecting
stickiness,
not to like that with rum. Now, I should back up. rum is always a little bit sweet because
Sure.
of,
Molasses-y.
of what it is, right? But I was expecting it to be even sweeter with the pineapple, and that's not it at all. It just has it's wonderful.
Well, and I
infusion.
think maybe Docs will probably agree. I think that term "sweet," I think sometimes it's like misappropriated to rum. Like,
Right.
like it's got that kind of figgy, dried fruity
Right.
note. With
Yeah.
like in wine, you see it sometimes. People are like, oh, it's a sweeter red. It's not. It's
Right.
a more character.
But
Right.
there are sometimes when you try, let's say, an infused vodka, for example,
Sure.
that it will take on some sweetness from whatever it has been infused with, and that's not the case at all.
Docs can offer you a cigar. I have a Patron.
No, I'm good.
So it's anyway. We got off on that rum, which isn't even part of what you brought, but that's a regular part of your portfolio that I'm grabbing whenever I see it on the shelf.
It's taken on a life of its own. And,
Really, hasn't it?
we make more every year. This started off. We did the first time as sort of a lark. We had no idea it was going to be this big. We made it for the cams and Tales of the Cocktail. If you don't know, Tales of the Cocktail is the big bartender convention every year
Right,
in
right.
New Orleans. The cams are the volunteer bartenders who make 1,000 pots of simple syrup. They squeeze 1,000.
Yeah, the
a
caps.
million lemons.
Yeah.
They work the caps. What did I say? Cams.
Yeah,
Sorry,
caps. Yeah,
CAMS means chain account managers. I'm thinking business. CAPS. Thank you, CAPS. They're called the CAPS.
cocktail assistant program.
Thank you. So anyway, we made it for them. And the first time I ever tried it,
Man.
we were hanging out, a bar on Decatur Street, and our Chicago guy, a gentleman by
Wait,
the name
so, there's a bar on Decatur Street?
we were at a special event there, and our guy Victor Bouvier, he actually used to be here. He's our Chicago guy now. He had a bottle, and he worked for the company at that time. I did not. I still worked for Republic, and he let me try it. And he had to chase me down Decatur Street to get that bottle back. I ran with it. I ran with that bottle. And so that was 2014, and then we were launched it to the public in 2016. We only made I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many bottles, but we only got 150 cases in Texas. Right now, we got 1,000 cases on its way to Texas right now.
Well,
we make more every year.
I know when we first discovered it, it was difficult to find. I mean, you'd clear the store out of what they had on the shelf. You'd go back in and it wouldn't be restocked for a while. Now it's a little more easy to find, so that's good.
Well, we make more every year, and it's a lot of work. And when we had our team meetings there in January, we had all the European teams, all the American teams, about 40 of us in total, and we made a batch. We cut. It must have been at least 100 cases of pineapple.
Wow.
We put on some tropical music. We all had our little knives and our cutting boards. Towards the end, we had a pineapple skin fight. No, not pineapple skin fight because we use the skins. It was just the heads. Pictures the head out there. They're throwing the pineapple heads at each other.
I don't like this was OSHA sanctioned.
Yeah, I bet it wasn't.
And there might have been the occasional cut. So there might be a little bit of Doc's DNA in there. I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
The other thing that I'll just say about it before we move on is that, and this I think is true of all of the plantation rums in your lineup, is these are very inexpensively priced. They're not things where you go and you really plunk down a lot of money, but you get them home and the quality level is just it's spectacular.
So I would say that the one constant with all the plantation rums, other than the double maturation, that being bourbon barrels in its native country, and then Pierre Ferrand barrels back in France. That's every plantation.
Yeah.
The quality is a constant, but the flavor profile is going to be all over the flavor wheel. The price, we have our more expensive ones and we have our more affordable ones. So I think, and it really it's going to come down to, for the most part, the rarity of the product.
Right.
Sure.
For the most part. But that's not always necessarily true. I brought a couple things today. Some
of
you may have
rarity,
tried, some you may have not. But I'll tell you what, can we start with the cognac?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I
Where's
didn't mean to.
the
it all-
OFTD?
What?
Where's the OFTD?
I just gave it to Kalen Self. I had a bottle in my backpack, and I just gave it to Kalen Self from
Knew you
Anvil
hated me.
about
I've
20
known
minutes
how
ago.
much you hated me for years.
We had lunch, and I promised her a bottle of rum back in December, and I finally came through.
Well,
So.
but I didn't mean to divert us to rum. We can absolutely start with cognac, and let's let you send us down the right path here. Doc.
Should we revisit an old friend first?
Let's do.
All right, I'm going to put my microphone down here.
I'm pretty much all new at this, so you can start anywhere with me.
Well,
The hombre.
this is
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the amber. Is that right?
Ombre.
Ombre.
Ombre. Yeah.
So this is where it all started. This is our flagship cognac, if you will. So the one thing that you need to understand about Pierre Franc cognac that separates us from most cognac producers is that everything we do is 100% Grand Champagne cognac. Now, the bigger producers out there, they make quality cognacs from top to bottom. In my opinion, it's hard to make a bad cognac. There's a lot of rules. We all have the same regulations of what kind of grape we can use. We all use open flame Chanté copper pot stills, and we all use French oak. So I think all cognacs are good cognacs.
So you're saying if the rules are followed, that it's difficult to make a bad cognac?
Well, they have to be followed. If you're not following them, you're not making
Then
cognac.
it's not cognac, right.
Yeah, good. More on that. Let's put a pin on that one. So there's a funny story behind that. So, but what makes us special, for the most part, is the fact that everything we offer is 100% Grand Champagne cognac. To put that in perspective, most of the other bigger producers, the only thing they're going to offer it's 100% Grand Champagne cognac. It's going to be the Louis XIII, the $2,000 bottle, $3,000 bottle.
Right.
Tremendous cognacs. But everything from our initial offering to our rare $200 bottle, $1,000 bottle, 100% Grand Champagne.
By the way, when we get through this, we can go all the way to the top of the pyramid. I've got the Ancestral downstairs as well.
Hold on to it. We're not making it anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the last of it. We got some. We got some up in Texas.
Newsflash: the price of Ancestral at B&B just went up.
Well, now let me ask you this: obviously, you're using a higher quality champagne, but what does it do to the cognac itself? How does that make it better?
Good question. So let's back up a minute. This is not a champagne grape.
Okay.
So when we say Grand Champagne, is a reference to the territory of where the grapes are grown. So in cognac, you have the 6 territories of Grand Champagne, Petit Champagne, which ironically enough is smaller than Grand Champagne in size alone.
Right.
You have Bauderie, Fembois, Bonbois, Fembois, Bonbois, Bois Ordinaire, and think of it as a dartboard. And right there in the middle is Grand Champagne, and the further you get out to the other territories, the lesser the quality of the soil. Now, why is the soil better? Higher concentration of chalk and limestone. That's it. Wow. Lots of chalk and limestone, lots of minerals in the soil. They maintain moisture better. You're just going to grow better fruit, a better quality of grape.
Gotcha.
And there are good, we're called Fiend Champagne. Cognacs was going to be a blend between Petit and Grand Champagne. There's good Borderies. There's good, some of the Bonbois. But at the purest, at the best fruit is going to be Grand Champagne, for sure. All right?
Okay.
That's generally accepted in the cognac world. That's why when you get 100% Grand Champagne from the larger producers, you're going to pay $2,000 a bottle. There's a reason for that.
Gotcha.
All right. So, the grapes. The grapes we use, the varietals, for the most part, we're going to be using Uni Blanc and a little bit of Colombard in some of these. There's like 7 varietals that cognac makers can use, but the 3 main ones are going to be Folie Blanc, Uni Blanc, and Colombard. All right? So, what else are we doing to make our stuff special? We use, let's taste something first.
I like this guy. He asks his own questions.
Yeah, I know. Makes it real easy.
He's interviewing himself.
He asked the question.
I didn't have to do a lot of work for this show, getting prepared because I knew this. But, well, now, in terms of tasting, I've already had a sip here. Ian, since you didn't get to taste this the last time, talk to me about your initial reaction.
Well, so this is... I'm not that familiar with cognac, to be honest with you. It's not on my radar in general. This is an absolute delight. I've had some cognacs before that I thought were a little too musky, a little too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Kind of. This right here is actually light and refreshing. You could definitely taste that light grapiness to it that really and then I love how oily it is. I love how it coats the mouth and the flavor just kind of, just goes everywhere across the palate. And then finishes so light and so delicious it kind of leaves you wanting a little more.
So this is the Pierre Franc Ombre. And it is our initial offering. It's the one we started making in the first place. It's going to be a blend of 90% Uni Blanc, 10% Colombard grapes. The cognac itself is going to be anywhere from 4 to 6 years old with a 10 to 12-year-old Bonificateur. When I'm going to hear my phrase. Bonificateur is the oldest cognac we put in there.
Right.
So the base cognac, anywhere from 4 to 6 years old. The oldest cognacs that we're putting in there to give it a base, to give it that kickstart, is going to be anywhere from 10 to 12 years old. So we sometimes say average 10 years old, though it's not a true average. You know, to give you the average age, every blend would be impossible.
Would be slightly different.
So
yeah,
we can say like a tasting age of 10 years old.
So it's blended for taste, though, not for age, right?
100%. And that's pretty much a good rule of thumb with cognacs, where cognac varies from scotches. It's not always about the age. It's about the blend. And not only that, you're not going to find many single barrel cognacs out there.
Right.
Cognac is about blending. It's about what you're doing with those barrels. Most of the major producers don't even do most of their own distillation. But that's not a knock on them. The art of cognac, because everybody's using the same kind of stills, everybody's using an open flame.
Yeah.
The art of what you're doing next is going to be the blending after the aging, for sure.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing talent, I think, to take. Like, let's say you have this staple of your brand right here, and you have a guy whose job it is to take an infinitely variable source, like to some degree, and create this flavor profile as close to it consistently over and over again. That's pretty amazing.
Well, it is amazing, and we call him a master blender for a reason.
Yeah.
He had to train 20 years to get that title.
I love where the heat hits the palate on this, by the way. There's just a little bit of heat on this, and it's interesting because, like, on a lot of whiskeys, you get that, what I like to call the whiskey hug, that is in the very back of the palate, and then sometimes comes back up, and you feel it right here. The heat is interesting because on the very outside at the back of my mouth, and it's kind of a tangy kind of heat.
And it also comes about 3/4 of the way through the experience.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily come up front, doesn't necessarily come at the end. It's part way through. It's an interesting way to experience it. Go ahead.
No.
I was just going to ask you, and we'll take a break here in a second, come back, try some more things, try a little craft beer, and talk about these cigars because we've all lit them now, and I see Jeremiah seems to be particularly enjoying his. So we'll get back to that. But I did want to ask about cognac. Like, I think of cognac as being that bottle that you've got to have, you know, 1 or 2 in your bar. You're going to enjoy it as an after-dinner drink occasionally. I don't necessarily think of it as something that would sell nearly as much as, say, you know, a bourbon or a rum or something. Am I correct on that this is more of a, let's call it a specialized spirit, or does it move, do people drink it more regularly than I'm thinking?
I'm going to call it a misunderstood spirit.
Okay.
So I'm going to give a little history here. In the 1800s, there was this epidemic called the phylloxera epidemic. It wiped out the vineyards of Europe, and what it was a pest that actually came from Denton, Texas. It came from. Somehow it made its way over to Europe, and it decimated the vineyards.
And not the last pest that will come from Denton, Texas, by the way. But I digress. Anyway, I'm sorry.
So you digressed the hell out of me right there. All right, so,
You derailed him.
wow. So this thing, it just killed the vineyards of Europe. You couldn't get wine, you couldn't get brandy from Europe for the longest time.
Right.
And before that, cognac and brandy was like the most, brandy in particular, was the most consumed spirit worldwide.
I did not know that. That's crazy.
And when Americans, well, not just Americans, but people just across the globe, including Americans, when they could not get cognac for the longest time, or brandy, they started using more whiskey in cocktails. Some of your classic cocktails that are made with whiskey now were originally made with brandy. You have the julep. You have the Manhattan was Sazerac for sure. In fact, we make he uses it here, I believe. The 1840. We have a cognac that's a younger, more bolder cognac at 90 proof that we created just for cocktails to get some of that little golden age cocktail era back. But here's where I'm going with this, is that when it wiped it out, there was like, I think 250,000 acres of vines in cognac alone, pre-phylloxera. And to this day, we are still like, I think, at 125,000.
Really? Wow.
It's not that we haven't had time to grow them back. The demand has not come back yet.
I see. Gotcha.
So what once ruled as king of all spirits, I'm talking about brandy in general, not just cognac, because at the end of the day, cognac is just brandy made in the cognac.
Very specific place, yeah.
So just the demand has not come back. And when I say it's a misunderstood spirit, I think that a lot of times people think it's either too upper class or they think it's too hip hop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's one or the other.
Totally
Where
understand.
but we're starting to see some bleed into the whiskey world. I mean, you've seen us at the Houston Bourbon Society, the whiskey social.
The whiskey social.
Whiskey social.
We see these guys post all the time about our cognacs. They love our cognac.
Yes.
And it's nice to see that they're branching out and trying new spirits, and not just our cognac, but other cognacs also.
A big fan of your cognacs actually is Chris Hart.
Yeah.
Who nobody cares about.
Nobody cares about that guy.
Yeah, but we'll talk more about Chris, who nobody cares about. I do have some questions for you about the Whiskey Social, which you guys were at, and I enjoyed seeing you there and sampling a number of your wares. And we want to come back and do a little more cognac. I'm sure Jeremiah's got some things on his mind as well. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back at Smoking and Toasting. And we are live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston. Be right back. Welcome back, my friends. Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 137, by the way.
Can you believe we've been around that long?
See, you changed it up. You changed it up. I like that. Show number 137. We're enjoying cigars and fine spirits from Maison Ferrand. We're live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant, which is the very institution that brings you the show, by the way. 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth, and right across the street, of course, from the Houston location is B&B Lemon. You call it B&B Lemon, right? That's
BB Lemon.
BB Lemon.
BB
See,
Lemon.
I thought I noticed when we were there that the staff was saying BB Lemon, and I didn't know if that was just shorthand or...
So we're B&B Butchers, but the offshoots are BB. So BB Lemon, and then BB Italia just opened over off Memorial and Dairy Ashford, which is the old Carmelo's.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, that happened.
Do some marketing, man. Come on. I love Italian.
That's what it's all about.
Because
Now-
we're already too busy to... they like us. They
Now-
really like us.
Now, Ian and I brought our wives to dinner here, sat actually right in this general area.
Right in that corner.
Just a couple of weeks ago. Had a fantastic dinner here at B&B, and I couldn't help but look around and notice that the place was just... I mean, you were just rocking that night. It was. So I thought it would be, worthwhile to point out, and with you here, it's especially good that clearly your sponsorship of the Smoking and Toasting show
Has taken off.
Has
Obviously,
just
yes.
made it crazy around.
I'd like to think it's like one hand washes the other. Like without us, there's no 138th episode.
Well,
Without
that's
you
probably
guys,
true.
there's
That's
no tomorrow
probably
at
true.
B&B.
Without you, there would have been no final hour to the 100th episode.
Yeah.
So that was an important piece of the history of the show as well.
Oh, man,
so
that's where we drank that crazy Navy rum.
Speaking
Speaking
of
of Chris Hart ruining lives.
yeah,
and tomorrow mornings.
yes, I love that crazy Navy
He
rum.
gave me some of that. I have a little vial of it
It
on my bar at home,
it's
and
an
every now
insane
and then
piece of history.
It's
I
fantastic.
keep it around to remind me what not to do.
Yeah.
Dutch, you were, I think, finishing up about the cognac that we were drinking a moment ago.
Yeah, just a couple of things about what makes us different from your typical cognac producer. It gives us kind of that cut above. It's not only just the Grand 100% Grand Champagne. It's also we like to practice different kinds of cellars. We use a mixture of dry and humid cellars. Dry cellars are going to produce a much more forward, sharper spirit, where the humid cellars, due to the moisture in the air, is going to be softer, more rounder spirits. So depending on what cognac we want to produce, we're going to vary what kind of cellar we use. For example, the ombre, it was going to be mostly humid cellars. So a very well-rounded, very soft, more inviting cognac. All right. Secondly, we use lees in our distillation.
Say that again.
Lees.
That's like drastically uncommon.
It's basically just the skin. It's the skin of the grape that's left in during the fermentation process, where most producers will filter it out and just use the actual wine. We're leaving the lees in there, depending on how heavy the lees are. Again, the more bolder spirit. So this is the ombre. We're going to be medium lees on this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we get to like the reserve or some of these others, will that be different?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll vary from cognac to cognac. Definitely the reserve is going to be heavier lees, and something like the Renegade barrel right here. That's definitely going to be heavier lees.
So I'm really excited to try that one. First, though, we're going to switch momentarily to craft beer because we brought along something from Austin, Texas, from the Fourth Tap Brewing Co-op that is called the Brut of All Evil. and I don't know, we're not that close to the camera, but I'll show the camera the can.
I can make this happen. Watch this.
See, Ian and his wireless microphone have enabled us to do.
Can you see
beer
how
close-ups.
wireless
I would
I
like
am?
to take a moment to point out the high production value on the close-up.
Once again, this
No
is,
need to fix anything in post, you know?
This is how we do it.
Well done, Mr. DeVille.
Yeah. So it's a great line.
It was a great line. I wish I could have heard it.
Yeah.
to sum up, Docs, just well done, Mr. DeMille.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a Brut IPA from the boys from Austin at Fourth Tap, which is getting no small amount of buzz these days.
Now,
as
perhaps I can get a little education here from you. So, I'm not obviously as beer savvy as some. Is Brut IPA like dry, like
yes,
champagne?
it's the same thing that you would think of when that word
With
is
a
used
sparkling wine.
in a sparkling wine,
Okay.
which is it's a drier. So you'll notice when you taste this, it's drier on the palate than, say, a typical IPA would be. And I will also say this: I don't think I have tasted. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I don't think I have tasted a Brut craft beer that wasn't an IPA.
This
So I think
smells
this may be
outstanding.
unique to the world of IPA. So
The smell was so good, I could not wait to taste it.
on the can, they say body light, hoppiness.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous. Actually, that is what it says.
Yes.
Easy on one side and ridic on the other. And it's all the lever is all the way over to ridic. And then balance, sweeter than bitter is how they have.
It is
how they
definitely
have
not
described
as bitter as I was preparing myself for. But Ian, how sessionable does that thing taste?
This is dangerous. This is so easy to drink.
it. Yeah,
This is an IPA.
this is an IPA.
So not having a trained beer palate, and I used to drink a lot of beer, a little bit still these days, not much. But one thing I noticed right away is the number one complaint that I hear from people that don't like IPAs. I noticed this myself. There is a vegetalness to IPAs. It's almost like a canned peas thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. For some people, it throws them off. This does not have that.
Ian calls it chewing on a pine cone.
Yes,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
pine cone resinous flavor that you get on the end. This right here has.
You had older brothers, right? That's why I got to chew on some pine cones.
Yeah. Well, there are hopheads, the
Absolutely.
real hophead fiends that love that. It's what they're looking for.
Yes.
And a
Well,
lot
that's
of,
what
in
there's-
particular, the specialty IPAs.
I was just about to say, you have those guys making like palate records.
This has a. What's funny is it's a Brut of all evil. You'd expect this to be a big,
angry.
a big ridiculous flavor. This is actually pretty delicate overall.
Well, it is
The
ridiculous
aroma
in terms of hoppiness,
Adds
but it's not.
so much of the flavor to it.
Yes.
Even beyond the what you get directly on the palate. The aroma has that super nice. It's hoppy. It's got a little of that aromatic thing going on, but it's also you can smell the maltiness in it a little bit. But neither one of those things is huge at the beginning of the palate. It's like they blend and then they kind of go separate ways on the palate, where you get just a little bit of that malty sweet roll all the way through, and the hoppiness in this has no real bitter harshness to
That's
it
right.
at all.
That's really soft.
I will
Yeah.
say
I'm telling you, my first thought of my mind was sessionable. Can I have another one?
the Pierre Ferrand Ombre went so nicely with this cigar,
Wow.
which, by the way, Ian gave me
absolutely.
before the show. This is a Bolivar from Havana.
Oh,
So
excellent.
This is a really, really nice Cuban.
We used to do that Pierre Ferrand cigar cognac.
favorite.
We don't make it anymore, unfortunately.
I remember seeing that.
It was my favorite.
It was a little bit of
amazing.
a bolder
Leather.
cut. It had a lot more. I remember correctly. God, it's been a while. I think it had a lot more dry cellar cognac. No, it was humid cellar. I've kind of deleted the file because we're not making it anymore. But it was.
I can tell you the tasting notes.
If you see it, you'll find out some independence here now and then. Maybe the occasional specs you'll still see it on shelf. If you find it, buy it. We're not making it anymore, and the reason why we call it cigars because the flavor profile, the rancio of it, was perfect for keeping the palate refreshed, almost like scraping off that numbness that you get
Right.
from smoking a cigar.
Uh-huh.
It was just perfect for it.
Well-
and the reason we want to make it anymore because it didn't sell anywhere except for Texas. It's sold in Texas. I said, we'll keep making it for Texas. It's
Come
a big
on,
state.
Yeah, come on.
That's right.
Well, I was just going to say, the cigar went so well with the Ombre. I was actually a little worried about opening the IPA because I didn't want that to get in the way of, the way these two were pairing. But I'll say this Brut of all evil pairs beautifully with the cigar. And that's for an IPA, that's saying something because, as I've mentioned many times on the show, I do love the IPAs, but enjoying them with cigars is challenging.
It is challenging.
Yes, absolutely. There are certainly some that work. Yellow Rose from
Lone Pine.
Yeah,
That's
Lone
because
Pine
that
comes
is
to
the
mind.
single greatest IPA the earth has ever seen.
Okay, so you and I are definitely in agreement on this. We really are.
I'm sorry, like it's just that is the greatest IPA I've ever had.
I will also mention that one we had on the show a few weeks back, which was the Wolf Picker IPA from Odell's. I have been enjoying that with cigars as well, and it is so close to being as good as the Lone Pine.
So our buddy Brian on here posted on the comments here, style comparison per the AHA. Hopped in a similar fashion to New England IPA, but without the sweetness. Pale, sometimes slightly hazy like a West Coast IPA, but without the high bitterness.
Yes.
Highly carbonated, and agree with that, like a Belgian strong ale, but even drier and without the spice,
It is-
Belgian spice and phenol character.
And it is both hazy and very light in color. It's very pale.
This
as you
is.
can tell.
Did you get this here? Or did you get
I
this
did.
out in Austin?
No,
Okay,
I got this. I got this in Houston.
You are going
My
to
wife brought that home,
directly
actually.
affect sales because I will be buying some of
Well,
that
as
almost
we
immediately.
have mentioned many times on this show, Smoking and Toasting does, in addition to affecting the crowds at B&B butchers and restaurants.
They're making that in Austin.
Yes, this is from
That's
Fort
in
Tap in
Austin.
Austin.
I'm gonna be in Austin next week. I'm gonna have to swing by and see if they like cognac.
make a trade.
Yeah, I will tell you though, Smoking and Toasting directly affecting sales because Ian's going to be buying, a
Immediately.
six-pack of those on his way
Yeah,
home.
that's good.
So that's good stuff. This is Smoking and Toasting. Our show is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Jeremiah, what are you smoking there, buddy?
I too am on the Cuban train today. I had a very nice regular from here at B&B. He's become a buddy of mine. Joe, shout out to Joe Sadway. Congratulations on the baby.
Didn't you meet him at the
Whiskey Sniff, as I was telling y'all. But this
Another
is
match from the Whiskey Social.
Yeah, well, this was a Hoyo de Monterrey Habana. Really, really light, creamy. Again, really, really well paired with Veron Ombre. But I also think this guy, it's got enough grip that I think when we get into some of the bigger flavor profiles, like, the selection d'ange and the other stuff that Doc's going to talk about, it's pretty versatile.
Now, I haven't
I'm
seen
enjoying
the Epicure Special. I have the Epicure number 2s in my humidor right now, and they're outstanding.
Yeah, and I honestly I couldn't tell you what the difference between the two is, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'll tell you that.
The ones that I've have been outstanding, nice complex flavors without being like a sledgehammer.
Yeah, yours looks a little bit darker and more mysterious. What do you got going on there?
This is Don Pepin Garcia. A buddy of mine picked this up at the store the other day and goes, I picked this up because it looked like you.
I could concur that if I saw that sitting on a shelf, I would think Ian.
So this is the Don Pepin Garcia TAA exclusive, the Tobacco Association of America exclusive, and a lot of companies have done a specific blend for the Tobacco Association of America. So if you see that TAA tag, those are pretty much one-off batches that you should snap it up and try it. This right here is a big, dark, smooth Maduro-looking thing. And it is all cedar and wood. This is fun. It's got some complexity and some other little flavors underlying. It's got a little coffee, a little bit of chocolate, but but not sweet chocolate, like cooking chocolate powder,
like
kind
a
of
cocoa
chocolate.
nib,
yeah,
like
cocoa
the
nib
bitter
kind of thing. And it's going great with everything that we've had so far.
That's awesome. I'm enjoying the Cuban Bolivar. It's got a lot of. I don't know how to exactly describe this flavor, but I call it Cuban reddishness. Like there's a certain, I describe it more as a color than a flavor. There's a certain sort of red flavor that really good Cuban cigars often have.
Ironic Cuban red flavor.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying that because I don't quite know how to. It's an earthiness, but it's an earthiness that's really unique only to
Yes,
Cuban cigars that I've had.
It's a very Cuban thing. That particular cigar I found is very complex.
Yes,
well.
it is. It is. It's really nice, and so far going well with all of this. By the way, there is some major cigar news I wanted to pass on. The largest, one of the largest brands in the cigar business is for sale. Imperial Brands. They own Altadas. They own Monte Cristo. They own Tabacalera. They own JR Cigar.
Oh, wow.
They own Casa de Monte Cristo, which has now what about a dozen locations across the U.S., if not more. And all of those major brands, Monte Cristo and the major mainstream brands, these guys are for Romeo and Julieta, A. Chapman, and they also own 50% of Habanos South America out of Cuba.
Oh, wow.
They are for sale, and so who knows how that sale might or might not impact the cigar world. And
So
depending on who buys it.
Yeah. Now, is there anything like about why that would be? Are they having issues? Is somebody trying to get out of the business? Is it a
I don't
profitability
it
problem?
It doesn't really say in the article, which appeared initially in Cigar Aficionado, but they announced their intent to get out of the premium cigar business and called the move part of a $2.6 billion divestment program. The sale of the business provides an attractive opportunity to realize shareholder value, they said in their statement, and the program supports their ongoing simplification agenda and will release capital to pay down debt where appropriate and invest in growth agenda where appropriate. So
Sounds like they're firing a bunch of people and sizing down.
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, they acquired Altadis South America in 2007 for 16.2 billion euros, which is about $22.4 billion at the time. The sale, looks like quite a bit less than that. So, I don't know. Very interesting
That
stuff.
is interesting.
Yeah, and how that will
So
affect
a lot of
We're
those-
to see what
we won't
develops
know.
from that.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
a lot of those brands are, I don't want to call them like, they're not lesser brand, but like they're more approachable. They're less boutique, less.
Right. Well, yeah, if you think of Monte Cristo or A. Chapman or
know,
Romeo and Julieta.
Those are kind of like, I don't, please.
They're industry standards.
Yeah, and they're also kind of intro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember learning about those cigars far before I understood what a Maduro was, or the significance of a box pack Padron.
First cigars I ever smoked were Romeo and Julieta.
Absolutely,
So,
and then I think I moved right into a Monte Cristo Churchill.
Right,
Like,
exactly. So it'll be really interesting. Obviously, these are big brands; they're successful brands. So I don't, in any way, look for them to go away. And we don't talk that much about the cigar business on the show, but because there's always sales of this and that and what have you. But this one could be interesting. We'll pay attention. All right. We want to bring Docs back into the conversation because we're going to go another spirit direction here, and I don't know what he's thinking.
I was totally thrown off here for a minute. I'm looking at my backpack, and you see how it's red right there? I'm like, I don't remember it being red. Anyway.
The interior of the backpack.
Glad to know you're with us, Doc.
tells you how much it goes in and out of
Hey,
his backpack.
we're over here.
So Jeremiah's used to this. Like, Doc's like, something shiny. What was that?
100%.
Yeah. Well,
So-
when Jeremiah starts talking, who knows where
That's
it's going to go.
that's why we strategically placed him facing away from the rest of the restaurant.
So what's really funny, like I was talking about JR Cigar and all of them, and all that's ringing some very familiar bells with me because I spent so much time at Downing Street with our boy Dave Mascari. Is he still here?
He's actually at BB Lemon. So.
He's at BB Lemon? Well,
Which they also
you
have
can't
a
shake 'em,
cigar-friendly
Cigar-friendly
garden
patio,
out
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
so
and you can
please,
go
we
back
did
about-
that. We did that a month ago.
About
We-
4 shows ago, yes, we
Absolutely.
were out in the garden enjoying cigars.
if you're curious about a cigar and a cocktail, go see Dave over there.
So, so all that rung, I knew all those names. I understood that. I understood the reference. So there we go.
So where are we going next, spirit-wise, Docs?
Well, let's jump over to the Plantation Rum. Plantation.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
I insist.
Are we finally going to answer the question, what do you do with a drunken sailor?
What time of day? Is it early in the morning?
We're live, yes.
Great. Now I got
Curious to
that
know
in my
how
You know
long
what?
he's
Let's
been
just,
holding that
let's
joke
let's
in
just
his
skip all
pocket.
this and let's just do a little jaunty tune and all sing that song together, okay? What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you... All right. Okay.
We managed to refrain
shiny
from-
things.
That's
Shiny
right.
things. Okay.
137. That was the episode that featured the first singing.
There you go.
And the last.
And the last. Other than the intro, of course, which is very splendidly done by
John
by
Egan.
John Egan,
Yeah.
yes.
Recorded
So I'd like
over
to
at,
share with you our next big thing. We're super proud of this one, but before I do, I want to talk a little bit about Plantation as a brand. So, and you and I have talked about this before. We talked about it, and you fully understand this, but there is no Plantation distillery, and there never will be a Plantation distillery. Where it was born, we started selling cognac barrels to rum producers because to cover some expenses when we first started doing Citadel, our gin.
Right.
This is over 20 years ago, mind you.
Well, gin at B&B, by the way.
thank you. Well, okay. See, stop with the shiny things. Talk about Citadel later. On point. So, once we got all good and well with that, we started saying to some of the rum producers, hey, instead of us selling you the barrels, why don't you sell us some rum, and we're going to age it right here in Cognac? Because there's a huge difference between tropical and continental aging. Tropical aging being inside the Caribbean, wherever that rum happens to be made and aged,
right,
to where it's going to be aged in the same Cognac barrels in France. Completely different thing due to different temperatures and
Humidity,
moisture.
salinity,
Climate.
everything.
Yeah.
Climate's got a lot to do with it. So, having said that, though, we do own the West Indies Rum Distillery in Barbados, the largest one on the island. We own 2, Clarendon and Jamaica and Long Pond, in partnership with the Jamaican government, but they'll never be called the Plantation Distillery, because Plantation, at its heart, is about the diversity of the terroir of rum.
I was going to say, it's about all of these rums, all of these different styles.
It's all different styles,
all these different islands and
the
places where it
contrasts.
comes from. Yes.
Like Jamaican rum is different from Barbados rum, which is different from St. Lucia, from Haiti, from Peru, from Cuba, and we get rums from all these countries.
Well,
but
my question there would be, so how different is, the same way that the age of the different climates in the different places are affecting, like how different is the sugarcane grown in each of those places that's used to make the rum? Like, is there terroir there?
Great question. Yeah,
there is a difference in that, but it's very few countries are growing their own sugarcane.
Understood.
Very few countries are making their own molasses.
Understood.
So it does have an effect, but some countries, most of the Caribbean countries, are going to be using sugarcane or molasses from that sugarcane from major countries.
Got you.
Make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And having said that, we do not actually own a sugarcane plantation, which is why we have the name plantation. That's what sugarcane farms are called.
Okay.
Again, it's about the diversity of the terroir.
Yeah.
So, but one thing it's going to all have in common, though, is it all is going to be aged in bourbon barrels in its native country. We call that the tropical aging. And then all back to France and aged longer in the Pierre Ferrand Cognac barrels. We call that the continental aging. All right?
Okay.
So, this one right here is our new big thing called the Jamaica, the Plantation Jamaica Special Dry.
And maybe we'll have Ian, who has a wireless microphone,
Thank you.
run that over for its high-tech close-up.
So
before we partake.
We're very proud of this one. This one is sort of a sister product to our Barbados 5-year, which was like our biggest seller there. It's the number one retail seller. You'll see it at Specs. You'll see it at Total. You'll see it mostly in Independence. It's the very similar squat bottle with the straw around it.
The straw
a
around it,
5-year-old Barbados rum. And this is and it's like our perfect little Barbados rum. This is our perfect little Jamaican rum. Jamaica.
I love the Barbados rum, by the way. That's delicious.
Well, and that one's very fruity. It's very vibrant. This one is going
I
to
have
be.
that one on my shelf at this point in time.
And again, it's our most popular one. I was at of all places, I was at a car wash, and this fellow that was working the car wash, he opened up my back and go, "Man, I tell you right there, that's good rum right there. I got that at home." I'm like, "Well, thank you. Now you have an extra bottle." You got the heat, so I was, my car was
His
extra
best
clean
day
that
of work
day.
that week. Yeah.
But so, being that we do own a distillery in Barbados and we do own a couple in Jamaica, we do tend to, they are our favorite children. And since we already have our rounded, perfect little Barbados rum in the Barbados 5-year, we didn't want to do something similar with Jamaica, even though we've had some Jamaican vintages before. Okay? So this one, we call it Jamaica. Jamaica is the Arawak word, the word for Jamaica before it got colonized years ago.
Okay.
Centuries ago, I should say. And special dry because it is by far one of the driest rums we do.
And it is, it's brand new, right?
It's been in our market since October.
Okay.
Get rid of some of these.
So the way we produce this, it's going to be 5 different pot stills. All right, all pot still rum, no column stills.
No, that's full. That's new.
So
Those 4.
3 of the pot stills are from Long Pond, 2 of them are from Clarendon. There's going to be different proofs, different ages, different ester counts. Esters are those things in spirits that kind of give it that natural components. Those they give it those flavors, and they really stand out in rums, especially Jamaican rums. And there's different classifications of ester counts in Jamaican rums. You have your common cleans. Those are like the very flavorless ones. It goes up in there from something called a Wedderburn to a plumber to a high esters. The high esters are the ones that are super estery. They're just so much funk. It's more funk than flavor. That's one we'd be classified as a plumber. It's a nice little medium. You get that Jamaican hogo, that funkiness, but still mellowed out, if you will.
Yeah, this has just the nose on this has a bigger, rounder, and that very earthy. You said funk.
It's called hogo. Hogo. That Jamaican funk.
That's awesome. Yeah,
that's the name of my band, Hogo. That's the name of my reggae band.
That's funny. Mine is Jamaican funk. That's what a coincidence.
Jamaican funk. That's the name
I
of the first
definitely.
album.
This is
the
delicious.
dry.
Yes,
the dry quality
dry.
is
Yeah.
right
Super
there. But what I because I want to ask you about the dry quality, but what I like about it is it still has that fatty quality. You know, like there's still like a full palate,
That
like coating.
roundness,
It's still,
that-
it's
yeah.
still
That
Even
oiliness.
though
Sides of
it's
your tongue.
dry, it isn't thin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like you said that word, fatty quality. There's definitely a lot of mouthfeel to this, for
Yes,
sure.
yeah. Which, as for me personally, in my enjoyment of spirits, like two of the things I look for are like a big full mouthfeel, and then I actually really enjoy like the overproof, like the higher, like
I was just about to say,
I
yeah.
like that dry kind of burny quality. But what's really neat about this one is it has it, but it still very much has that round rum quality that you look for. Like this is phenomenal. And
So-
I can say I've never actually, out of all of your portfolio, I've never actually tasted this one. So.
Well, no, well, it's relatively new, and every time we do a rum, we want it to be incredibly different from the last one we did.
Right.
So anytime you try a new plantation, it's a guarantee you're going to say, "I've never tasted this before."
Sure.
You know?
I just want to point to the camera since I'm wireless. How much it sticks to the glass too. Look at the legs on that. Is just
It's 86 proof.
86
crazy.
proof.
Now, do they chill filter rum? Like, I mean, obviously, I know that's a thing for most spirits, but like, because you talked about how you blended different proofs, and so do you kind of naturally get the dry at the 86? Because that's what 43%. Like, do you naturally get the dry just from the blending of the different proofs, or because it comes across as a little hotter than 86, to be honest. I mean, in a good way.
I'm trying to think of the best way. To you've asked me like 3 questions in one question. I'm
Sorry,
trying to
I'm
figure out
like
where to
nerding
start.
out. I don't get to pick your brain
Did
as
you
much as I
notice you
used
have
to.
red on
Yeah.
your backpack?
I was like, did I grab someone else's backpack? Okay, so Jamaican rum. The reason why it has this hogo, this funk, some Jamaican rums, and we use what's called it's a muck pit. All right, it's a muck pit that's creating this muck. That is nothing more than old runoff of old distillations that we're turning into this muck that we put into fermentation for the next batch. It seasons it. It gives it that those esters, those more of the compounds, and the fermentation is longer, and it's an open air experience also. So it's just.
Fascinating.
More flavor. More.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say, it would be more
definitely
tasty flavor,
it's
right?
funkier because it's just funkier.
Sure.
There's the funky things they're doing, and
The sourdough from
Yeah.
sourdough bread.
Right.
We actually had a fire at Long Pond, our facilities there over a year ago, where we lost a lot of old fermentation tanks and about, if I remember correctly, I think 60,000 gallons of unaged product.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but
That hurts.
the good news is it was unaged product. If there is good news. But the real good news is we didn't lose any of the stills, and we didn't lose the muck pit. The muck pit. Okay, remember when your grandmother would keep a thing of bacon grease on the
That's
stove?
exactly what I was
It's
thinking.
like
yeah.
that, man. You don't want to lose that because that's that's generations of
That's
not
good.
generations, but a lifetime of flavor compounding right there.
It reminds
Right.
me of like a good skillet that's been used
Good
and has
seasoned
that
iron
seasoned
skillet.
iron.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Right. So to answer your question, that's part of it. The other answer is we're using zero dosage on this one. Zero dosage. Now, dosage is sugar. All right, and let's talk about the beast. It's a bit of a hot topic, especially with some of the rum pages that you'll see on Facebook. So Plantation, we do practice dosage in some of our rums, but we're very transparent about it. We're very proud of it, and I want to talk a little bit about that, if I may. And there's just some purists that feel that the addition to sweeteners to rum after distillation is just a no-no. And I want to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. So when we say dosage, we're not just using granulated white sugar. We don't have bags of imperial sugar sitting around the distillery. We are creating what's called a sucrose. Hold my microphone. I happen to have some with me.
Okay. I'm holding Dox's mic, so we can...
This should be fun.
You may be wireless, but I'm in stereo.
That's true now.
So, well, this is interesting because he's right. This is a big discussion among the purists of rum as to whether that in any way invalidates or makes less pure
Sure.
the process of bottling rum.
And as for me, like as both consumer and a seller, like on the actual like I guess not retail, but on premise, however you want to describe it, I'm loyal to one thing, and that is the juice in the bottle. Because as a guy who's selling the juice in the bottle, and that's at the end of the day my goal, whilst practices are important, whether you do use dosage, like I love the fact like Docs use a very, very great word, which is transparency. If it's there, which rums, you know how they're being made, if they're being, quote unquote
Right.
sustainably practiced. Like he mentioned William Grant, like Florida Cognac went through their whole crazy thing about how the sugar cane was harvested and whether
Right.
it was, properly, practiced in that department. At the end of the day, you can do certain things and you can support certain things, but for me, like, I don't know, like that I would say like it's that important from my perspective. Like at the end of the day, if somebody wants Bacardi and that's what Bacardi does, I'm here to fill a demand, not necessarily.
And if that's the taste that they like. See,
absolutely, can it be wrong? I mean,
I've
it's
always
subjective.
I've always been a big believer in
Yes
this.
and no. Where I'm going to disagree with you is that I do think that there are producers out there that are not transparent about what they're doing. I think transparency is a very important thing, and at Plantation we are transparent about our practice. And if you go on our website, you can find exactly how much we put into a rum if we're putting it into a rum. We don't always do it. OFTD is no dosage. Jamaica is no dosage. Many of the single casks, no dosage. And when we are using it, we're talking grams per liter. For example, Plantation 3-Star, our best-selling on the on-premise world, our all intents and purposes, our white rum.
Yeah.
8 grams per liter. Think about that. 8 grams. That's less than a quarter of an ounce in an entire liter bottle.
It's
Actually,
How
1 gram
how
more
sweet
than
is that going to make that rum?
But I read about that on the internet.
No, I'm asking you a question. How sweet is that going to make a rum?
None. I would say imperceptibly almost.
So the question is, why do we do it? If it's not making it sweeter, why add it?
Exactly.
We call it the salting effect. And that
Sure.
We call it the salting effect. You have a good dish at home. It doesn't need salt, but you want to open up the flavors. You sprinkle just a little bit of salt to do what? To make it salty?
No. It
No,
turns on
it's
your
to
palate.
add- yeah,
I
it's
mean,
to add-
You're bringing out
Opening
other
the
flavors.
palate.
it's
That's
the
all
idea
it
of
is.
using saline in cocktails.
Yeah,
a
there's
couple
a-
drops
there's
of
a-
saline
there's a-
in a cocktail
Right.
changes it, makes
Absolutely.
your tongue
There's
stand
a
up.
Absolutely.
point
Pay
of it
attention.
where it's before you can taste it, but it opens up those flavors and just helps your palate.
We did a very interesting
recognize it.
experiment back at the chateau this past chateau. It's a chateau, but I hate saying that because people make it sound like we're all just hanging out there, just sitting in these great rooms with art and everything. Just wondering,
it's
I wonder
not-
what the poor people are doing today.
on your Chez Lounge in the chateau.
It's
No.
not at all pretentious.
It's the
No.
room right next to the great room. They're doing all that. in.
We do it. We do it. It's a Chateau Bombonnet. It's our headquarters in Cognac in France. Alexander lives there in one room. He doesn't have a bathroom. He has to go across the hall to use the bathroom. It's funny, but the rest is all offices. It's all work being done. And I'm very proud to work for a man who, for the most part, puts the money back into the business. But having said that, we were there having meetings this past January, and we did a little experiment where we had the exact same rum with zero dosage. It was a 10-year-old rum. So, one with zero dosage and one with 10 grams per liter dosage. And the only difference in the flavor was the one with the dosage, the flavor lasted longer. It
Interesting.
didn't sweeten it up. It did barely change the flavor profile whatsoever.
It just lasted
made it last longer.
Fascinating.
So the reason why we went no dosage on this one, for the most part, is just we truly just wanted to go traditional Jamaican, and it's frowned upon to use the sugar in Jamaican.
Well, to just bring it full circle, this rum is fantastic. And I sampled this first at the Houston Whiskey Social. You guys had it on the table there. And I kept coming back for more, which is not what you normally do, by the way, at the Whiskey Social, because you're going to other tables,
You're
other
trying
tables,
lots
other tables.
of different
Yeah.
stuff.
There's lots of
Right.
I kept coming back for more because it really is
did not make the
spectacular.
whiskey social this year.
What is the retail on that bottle?
This one depends on where you get it. I think Specs is on the shelf for like, I think, $21 and change.
That's unbelievable. See, this is-
$21.
I mean, I don't know how you could spend $21 on a spirit and come out better than that.
Don't quote me on that. If anybody from Specs is
I wouldn't
listening,
have
I
batted an
apologize.
eye. Flavor-wise, I wouldn't have batted an eye at double that.
Right, absolutely. Well, but you guys don't have a lot of those rums in your
Ultra-premium,
portfolio
yeah.
that are more expensive like that. I know you do have some.
$100 a bottle.
All right,
Yeah,
so let's take a break so we can come back to that because that should be quite an experience. You are checking out Smoking and Toasting. We're live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant in Houston, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, episode number 137. Smoking and Toasting, all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, at the shops in Clear Fork and Fort Worth, and by, and I'll say it correctly this time, BB Lemon, which is right across the street.
BB Lemon.
Right across the street from where we are. Docs, before we went to the break, you had poured a little bit of this dosage into a cup, and we kind of passed it around and each had a little taste of it. Wow, that's just absolutely delicious. I want some for ice cream. I mean, that's just fantastic. I mean, I can see why that would have a sort of a palate warming effect on what it was added to, but I can also see why. And you've talked about the fact that you guys are totally transparent about this. I can see why that's important. I really do.
Yeah,
and,
transparency in the industry is a big thing.
you would get along well with our friend the Tater Talk expert, who's the man who's demanding transparency from the whiskey industry.
You talking Wade?
Yes, Wade.
Hey,
Yes.
he's a jerk.
Unlike Chris Hart, though, people do actually care about Wade.
Hey, will you say the name of the last one we just tried? One of our customers. or one of our-
Jamaica
That was
special.
the
So
Jamaica.
Jamaica special with an X.
Yeah,
So
so
XAYMACA.
his
And it is
stream got
Jamaican.
interrupted. He wanted to know what
And
it
you
was.
can currently find that at downtown Specs downtown,
Yeah.
and other places, but that's the easiest one.
It's definitely going to be there. Yeah.
So yeah, and by the way, once
Um,
again, Smoking and
yeah.
Toasting directly influencing sales.
There you go.
You mentioned something to me before the show started. This might be a good time to revisit it. I asked you how the Whiskey Social had gone for you guys, and you said you thought it went very well. And I asked you, how do you judge that? Like, is it by how many people come by the booth, how much you
Yeah.
pour? And you had a very interesting answer.
The answer to that is always whoever's got the phone up next to the bottle. That's how you know you got a winner, when someone has to get a picture of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that means they're going to be looking for that when they go into
Absolutely.
Specs or wherever to buy it.
And you mentioned it yourself, and I got a guy that works with me. His name's Pete DeTolo. He came from Republic. I hired him and I stole him from Republic and sent him to Dallas to go work on premise up there. And he actually experienced a couple of things that he noticed. He mentioned it to me, and I didn't notice it before. Whenever we do one of those things, we pay attention and we get more repeat customers. People are like, I don't want to try people. I'm going to have some more of this. We get a lot of, I'm going to have some more of this.
That's what I did.
You know.
I kept going back for the Jamaica. So it definitely happens. I thought I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just one thing to add. That's something that I've been preaching for some time, though. I feel like there's a direct correlation, like at an event like the Whiskey Social, between, whiskey and rum. Like in that, one of the things, the pervasive themes, you guys keep talking about the value of these high quality spirits that are not very expensive. Now, I've been trying to tell people, especially like I think probably Chris Morris and Pete and I were kind of first when we got into this idea, is that you can go buy an aged spirit like that Barbados 2007 that I'm looking at. Like if you went and tried to buy a bourbon from 2007, it would
Right.
be decidedly more than the $100.
Right.
However, I think that the value and the quality of spirits you're getting are very, very close and very, very applicable. Like if you want to show me like a cocktail that I can make with bourbon that I couldn't make with like the OFTD, I would challenge you to that. And yet it's much more approachable and affordable on a regular basis to keep your bar at home stocked.
Is he allowed to use that kind of language? He said Chris Morris. I said
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, fortunately, we are not restricted by the same censorship that some shows have to go through. So yeah, it's okay to say Chris Morris.
Okay.
Well, no, I just like. I mean, I like to give credit to people that help me learn things, man. And
we actually want to have Chris Morris. One of the things we've been dying to do, and I got to talk to you about this after the show.
Sure.
Want to have Chris Morris on to make gin martinis, and we need someone on who can make a really fantastic vodka martini, and we want to do the great vodka the great
Sure.
martini face-off.
Sure.
Yes, and
Let me
really
save you some
explore.
trouble.
I was just
know,
about to say,
it's
I'm
hands
pretty
down
sure there's
gin.
someone sitting at this table.
Well, okay, go ahead, speak.
No, I was going to say the only way the vodka's going to beat it is if your secret ingredient in the martini is some juniper. I'm just going to say.
I was just gin wins.
What if we had some of this? Would that help? Probably not.
Well, I mean, it would help in some things, but I mean,
well-
if it's gin, it's a martini. If it's vodka, it's just
See, I will
Vodka
tell
shaken.
you, I enjoy a gin martini, but really comes down to it. A great vodka martini
See,
is generally my favorite.
I'm much more gin martini. Like I think that a real martini needs to be gin.
yeah. A
I
vodka
will
martini
tell you, though,
just
my
deserves.
brother makes an outstanding vodka martini, but he tops it off with a little bit of scotch, and so maybe that's cheating.
because it needs some flavor.
Smoky martini.
Look, we're not beating up our fellow our vodka friends, but by definition, it's a flavorless spirit.
It
is-
literally means little water.
It is
Vodka
the-
is like
is-
Zhezhenya Voda, my
It
little
is the
water.
tofu of the spirit world. I
Sure.
realize that, but
Now, I would say there's qualities. There's better brands.
Absolutely.
There's better quality. But let's be honest. Vodka's not about what you taste. It's about what makes your mouth feel like.
Yes.
Right.
It's what you feel.
and it's
For
about
me,
it's
vodka
also about
martinis are an
what
excuse to drink olive juice.
and that can be a good thing. So let's not sell it short.
Oh no! And I work in an institution built on the dirty martini. The steakhouse
Yes,
is
absolutely.
a house.
So
built
how about
by
this for a
shaken
challenge?
vodka.
And instead of bringing on Chris Morris to do gin, why not bring two people who don't know what they're doing and have one use vodka and have the other one use gin and see what happens?
Well, you have a control group. Interesting. I
That
like where
might
this
be.
is
So maybe
going.
we should have 4 people.
Yes.
We should have 2 that know what they're doing and 2 that are more like me that don't. Yeah, that just
Sure.
put it in
Well,
and
I
shake
can
it
tell
up.
you, I did a martini lunch here with a very famous French vodka, and when it came time to do one of the actual martinis, it somehow managed to be a French gin
They got into the
that
martini.
made into the martini mix, and I'll just say I know where I preferred.
Now, Ian, you and I obviously, you prefer the gin martini. I'm more the vodka martini guys. I just wanted to point out that according to the reviews, you and I are supposed to agree on everything and like everything, according to the reviews.
Well, I mean, so here's the difference between a gin martini and a vodka martini, okay? You can drink a gin martini and truly enjoy the flavor and get a little tipsy. Or you can drink a vodka martini and get a little tipsy. I mean, that's pretty simple, right?
I love olive juice. Let's just
It's
put
a
it out
true
there.
story, though.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
gonna. I will.
Or
I
you
will
could
not
drink a
deny.
lot of gin martinis until you get Chris Morris faced.
With that, let's move on to a beer that I actually was holding back. I was going to bring this on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, no, got to wait for this until Dox is on and we're with Jeremiah, because this is from a really interesting brewery called Drake's Brewing. They are out of California, and it is
You say it's an emotional beer.
it may be, yes. Drake's
Like
that.
it's an emotional artist. Yeah. Was that Aubrey, the Nickelodeon rapper?
Yes, or maybe this is they called it Island Diaries. Maybe they should have just called it Hotline Bling. But in any case,
Did
it
it used to
is
call you on your cell phone?
a Rum-Barrel-Aged quad ale.
Now
so
we're
I thought
talking.
this would be the perfect show to try that when we're also enjoying some really good
Speaking
rum.
of drunken
So,
sailors,
Do
nice.
they have any cognac aged beer?
I do
haven't
want
seen
to
it.
point out, by the way, the next time you complain about the beers I bring,
Yes.
you just brought a 13.4% beer.
Ian, I'm just trying to keep up with you, my friend. I'm just trying to keep
You
up.
realize that I liked this before I even opened the bottle, right?
Yes, I do. There are a number of beers actually that I have been holding back for future shows. Going, I have a feeling Ian's going to love this.
at over 13%, I don't think it's an emotional beer. It's just going to make us emotional.
That's right.
Dax, I've seen you so long. It's so good to see you.
Honestly, I'm already a little emotional, and I haven't even sampled it just from the opening. Well, I can tell you that it's thick from watching Ian pour it into the cup here. Wow. So on the nose, it almost reminds me of a barley wine.
I was just about to say. Do you remember the Tripels, like the crate, like
And
that?
this is a Belgian strong, I believe.
I was about to say white label Chimay.
Yeah,
Reminds me of a
Belgian
white label
quad.
Chimay.
Sorry, Belgian quad. You already said that earlier.
Yep.
And this really does smell like a barley wine, and looks
And tastes.
a lot like
Crazily
a
Crazily
like a
enough,
barley
across the tongue, it has some of the same notes as the dosage that we just tried.
which makes some sense, right?
does,
Yeah,
it does.
it really does.
It needs to come with an alarm because it's just too easy to
I
drink.
do love
Oh
you,
man, at
man.
13%.
Yeah, and it should just
Wow,
it should just have a
this
little
is-
bell to ring to
this
remind you.
is
This is strong.
huge.
This is strong. This is strong.
Ian just got emotional, by the way. I don't know if you caught that. Mr. 13%, what do you think?
You know what's funny is at 13%, it's not even terribly boozy up front.
You're right. It's not.
Like you can get a little of the booziness on the tail end on the finish, but in a great way. This is so. It's got a lot of that date and raisiny kind of thing that you expect, but it's got a brighter underlying fruitiness that you expect from that Belgian. Also, I love the lack of carbonation in here.
Yeah.
This is carb just right for this beer.
It's Amaro-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
It also may be able to. It may be used to stick two pieces of wood together, and that's also a good thing. Yeah, this is. This
There's
is
a fruit
really,
layer to
really
it.
well. Yeah,
There
that
really is.
I can't
underlying
really put my
fruit.
finger on it. Like
That's
a dark
what-
fruit, like a dark deep cherry.
well, and that's what reminds me of the barley
Yeah.
wine. It's got that dark dried fruit
And that-
flavor to
Like,
it.
It's got a
prunes and
lot of
raisin. That's what I mean about the
oakiness to it.
Amaro-esque portion.
No,
too,
no,
you
and
know?
the prune and raisin, but there's like even like a chocolate covered cherry cordial like note somewhere, or maybe I'm describing it
Stone fruit,
wrong,
perhaps?
for sure.
But a bitter cherry kind of thing, not
Yeah.
a sweet cherry thing.
I will admit that calling it Island Diaries, putting the sunglasses on the label there.
That is an ironic.
Well, it is because
Oxymoron.
I can't even imagine drinking this sitting on the beach in a tropical island.
No,
it doesn't
Clearly,
have
you've never
no,
seen the
I'm
way
all-
I'm
I'm
on
all
beaches and
about
tropical
that.
islands.
That-
Ian,
misleading.
maybe you want to show that to the
that
camera
with
when
the
you're-
cigar
yeah.
is just outstanding. That rum, the aftertaste, that rum. What did you call it? The
Hogo.
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 That aftertaste of the rum with the oak is just amazing.
appearing tonight, Ogo.
Followed up by Jamaican funk.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's pretty spectacular. And this is something that the beer is. I'm going to assume this is a specialty brew. Drake's is from San Leandro, California, and the beer is just wow. It's just spectacular. I want to say, and I apologize that I don't remember. I want to say this was a fairly expensive bottle.
Sure.
Yeah, for a
That
smaller
would
bottle.
not. That
Well,
would
I mean,
not surprise.
you got to think with a beer to take it the time to go into the
Mm-hmm.
barrels. I mean, that's going to add to that essential, consumer cost for sure.
It was aged in French Caribbean rum barrels, and it was bottled
Did you say,
in
did you say
2018.
French Caribbean rum barrel?
That's what it says right there. Jeez, yeah.
Speaking of irony,
It says find your way to paradise.
how
Find
many
your way-
how many partners do you think rum distillers are partnered with French?
Yeah, yeah.
No, you have.
I mean, I'm sure there's a
but keep
few,
in mind
but-
that could also be the Martinique barrel. It
Okay.
could be,
It
and
says, it says on the bottle, find your way back to paradise with our version of a Caribbean nightcap. Notes of coconut, banana bread, and rum spice meld beautifully with the mild caramel and the coffee-like
What is
backbone
rum spice?
in this beer. What is rum spice?
Sailor Jerry?
Sailor Jerry,
Shout out to Gravy.
Mama Juana.
Oh wow! All right, well I'm gonna have to light up another cigar to enjoy with this. So while I do that, Docs, why don't you tell us where we're going next in the spirit world?
Yes. Well, okay. We were talking about not our lack of expensive rums. I filled that void. This is the Barbados 2007. We do single casks every year. We call them single casks because we, truth be told, there's probably more than one cask, but we do them in like 2 to 3 casks, single allotments. Once it's out there, it's out there, and once it's gone, it's gone.
All right. So what does single cask actually mean?
Well, usually it means only one cask, but yeah, not.
But it isn't always. You're saying it means.
It means that, in this case, it pretty much means that we just bottled one single cask of rum, though multiple casks have been used. Of course, naturally, because we have, of course, everything's going to start in the bourbon barrels in its native country. Then it goes to Pierre Ferrand barrels and back in France. And with the single cask, there's always going to be a triple finish. All right. So remember, let's see. Currently, I think Anvil has their Panama and the Cabrova, that South American mahogany finish. You have, of course, right across the way, Julep has their Haiti XO that's been triple finished, and our dry Curacao casks. With a NASA liquor, our friends there have a new one every year.
Does Julep have a bunch of OFTD on their wall?
On their wall? No, they have a bunch of their Plantation Haiti and Pineapple, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Pineapple. So we normally sell it to one account in regions. I'll get one single cask. We'll get, I don't know, maybe 23 per market. If I had to guess, maybe 120 something bottles out of it. Cases, 120 something cases out of it. So we would we'd chop them up in between different markets. So one customer in Texas is going to have one single cask, but somebody in California may have the same single cask, and someone in New York may have it. But we try our best to keep them far away from each other, right?
Makes sense.
In other words, semi-personalized. Well, this one was not personalized. Last year, we were offered 3 special vintages. One was the Fiji 2009, the Peru 2004, and the Guyana 2005, I think it was. I didn't get any Guyana. I was pissed. I complained. I bitched and moaned enough to where Guillaume, that's our vice president and my boss, offered me this, the Barbados 2007.
Nice.
And the only place you can get this outside of France is going to be in Quebec in Canada and here in Texas. Nice. And I did not sell it to a single account because I want everybody to get it. So would you mind passing it around a pour so I can keep running my mouth? And it's a heady little elixir too. So all Barbados rum from Mount Gaboa, not from our West Indies rum distillery.
Okay.
I think it's 10 years in the bourbon barrels. I think it's a year in the Pierre Ferrand cognac cask, but an extra year in Bordeaux cognac cask. A Bordeaux cognac that was not Pierre Ferrand. We do other cognacs. We do have some other labels, but anything that's Pierre Ferrand is 100% grown champagne. Our Bordeaux, our blends, that's going to be on a different label. So we use some of our Bordeaux cognac cask on that.
So, Docs, we've just had... I'm sorry, finish.
Well, I want to warn you before y'all taste it. This one is 118 proof.
Okay.
Now you're speaking my language.
So, which leads me to what I wanted to ask you, which is...
Is that a warning?
We've just had a really, really exceptional under $30, well under $30 rum. Now we're going to have one that's, what, $100? $100 for the bottle. What should we be expecting the difference to be before we taste?
Night and day. This is going to
Absolutely.
be this is going to be something that you're going to have to. It's got a ton of mouthfeel. It's not only just a very strong spirit as far as proof. It's strong on flavor. Now that first touch on your tongue is not going to hurt you, but you're going to get that acid reflux that you get from an overproof spirit, or high proof spirit, I should say.
Interesting. It's much stronger on the nose too.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of the
Did I
burn
underpour everybody?
just on the nose.
I think you might have.
Did you underpour or overpour? Is that what you asked?
I was being very gentle with the pour, but I think I got barely a taste in everybody's glass.
So it's no dosage on this one. It's a sipper. It's not for the faint of heart either.
It's really terrific. Jeremiah, you're as knowledgeable about rum as just about anybody that I know. Doc's perhaps being an exception. But what's your take on this?
Well, first of all, before I even get to the specificity of this being a rum, just as a fan of
spirits,
overproof, specifically brown liquors, this is exceptional. And what's amazing is it goes right into what I was just saying. Like, this is easily, I would put this right next to, an overproofed American or like a very high-proofed rye as far as character, complexity, mouthfeel. Like, it's got a chew to it that I highly recommend when you're trying it. Just let it sit in there and Obviously, like Doc said, that might hurt in the first time because it is not for the faint. But wow, and what a palate cleanser as far as the cigar perspective side of it. I actually just lit a very big, bold Padron 64 anniversary, and this thing just wiped it right off of my tongue.
So
unbelievable.
I want to point out, too, that I just on a whim tried this Island Diaries right after it, and not only does it stand up, but you know how some things like chocolate and ice cream just really, really go well together?
Wow.
Try a sip of that with it. Those two things are, like, pretty amazing.
Jeremiah, we talked when we were trying the Jamaica about how well that stood up to anything in its price range from
Yes.
whiskey or other spirits.
Absolutely.
How does this, in your mind, stand up to a really nice bottle of whiskey that we might have paid $100 for?
I think if you're in the same price range, I think from a quality perspective, I think this stands up really well, especially from the standpoint of you know one of the things that Doc's talked about is the rarity of things. So this being rare because it's a single cask release, you might have, unfortunately to say, like you might be actually drinking a far inferior American spirit if you're going with a bourbon just because of the sheer demand for bourbon right now. So
Right.
you might be drinking a product that was made not as well or not as, say, with as much care. But I think if you're just talking like spirit to spirit, if you're saying an ultra premium, whiskey of any variety, would this stand into that club? I think absolutely. Like this is the kind of thing that would make the reserve list on my menu here because of its exclusivity and because of its quality. And I mean, this is absolutely phenomenal.
So this one, unfortunately, has not been brought into the big stores yet, but you can find it up on the north side, I think at Ryan's Liquor in Cyprus. You can find it, of course, down south at NASA Liquor. I don't think who else might have it right now in the Houston area, but those are the two that come to mind.
But
What
I'm
you're
telling
talking
you,
about is what you just poured.
No, the one,
No.
the one
And
where
talking about the-
and I'm
2007.
telling the
Again,
listeners
the
out
Barbados
there,
2007.
if you're
Okay.
looking, I
Exclusive to
guarantee
Texas.
you.
We still have plenty left in Texas, but it'll probably be done by the end of the year, I would imagine. But I brought something else out because I wanted to compare and contrast and really go kind of polar opposites here from rum from the same country, and of course produced in the same fashion as all plantation rums are, at least that double aging. This is our 20th anniversary. Plantation XO,
Which is fantastic.
I want to be very clear
So
about something. It is not a 20-year-old rum. We've always had 20th on
Right,
there. The
20th anniversary.
The TH is on there. Again, we like to be very transparent. And the reason why we call it 20th anniversary, because simply it was produced by our blenders in France as a surprise to Alexander Gabriel, our master blender, on our 20th anniversary of making spirits, and that was 10 years ago. We're on our 30th anniversary this year.
Wow.
I kind of got my fingers crossed to see the hope, which
That
is
there's gonna
really
be
good.
a
Yeah,
30th.
right?
Yeah.
But we call this one the XO, all Barbados rum, aged anywhere from like 8 to 12 years.
Smells
But
like an old baseball glove. It's awesome.
completely different. Very tropical. You get a lot of coconut notes. As that the best Barbados that we tasted right here, not for the inexperienced drinker. It's for the Brooker's drinkers and that sort of thing who appreciate a high proof one. This one at only 80 proof, I believe. Even though an experienced drinker can enjoy it, it's also something that the novice can enjoy also because the flavors are welcoming, they're warm, again tropical. It's just easy drinking.
Night and day is a great
This is
description.
this is interesting. This has a breadiness to it, a very like almost a gingerbread kind of
Yes.
thing on the note. With the coconut is so prevalent too. It's very different from our last selection.
This one is one of our most award-winning rums. It's our most popular one in Europe and Germany. They drink the hell out of this one in Germany, and we've been refocusing in the United States on it as well. You'll find it at all major specs. Usually not lined up with the other plantations. It'll be up there with the other higher dollar ones. It's about $45, $50 a bottle. But
fantastic.
it's certainly one of our best.
I will just say, while
Make milkshakes with this.
while we tried
absolutely.
while we tried the Island Diaries Rum-Barrel-Aged quad after the
2007
the
single
2007 single cask, and it was a really nice pairing. I just went back there after this and it is a completely different experience. I'm getting the banana, and the bottle even said banana bread. You get that flavor just jumps out at you when you pair it with the 20th.
It definitely brings out the breadiness in the beer in a huge way. Like I just like when I smell this, and everyone's palate's different, but this smells like gingerbread liqueur almost. It's amazing on my nose.
Honestly,
should we do
wonderful.
Plantation Island Diary bombs here?
Snackeries.
Yes. The answer is yes.
You know,
I like the
told
idea.
you my last appearance on the Chris Hart show. I got a little toasty. We'll be
Yes.
flambéed, man.
Well, we're really fortunate to be able to sample the things that we're able to sample
Absolutely.
on a show like this, and it's not lost on me. Hopefully, we can communicate some of that. So if somebody's thinking about going out and spending $40-50 on a bottle of rum, I don't know if I could think of a better choice than that.
I have to get a bottle of this. I can't stop drinking this.
It's
actually.
really fantastic.
So-
And interesting, I just want to say this. The fact that you were willing to go to that after the 2007 single cast, I think that speaks to how great it is. Because
And the fact that our palates were still able to discern those cool, subtle fruit
Right.
notes,
Yes.
like
Yeah,
that
well,
again is a
we're-
testament to the craft.
and also that we're not to the end of the show. But
True.
but seriously, it says a lot, because after you drink something that's as overproofed as the 2000 was, to be able to come back and appreciate the subtleties, it just says a whole lot about the 20th. That's fantastic. Fantastic. All right, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's take another break. We will come back. I know there's some cognac we are still wanting to try. So
New things and good things.
you can point us in a good direction. And we do have one more beer, and it's called Aminal. As in,
Aminal.
as an animal, but not spelled quite properly. It is, in fact, another one that I think Ian's going to go crazy over. It is a barrel-aged Barleywine-Style ale from Coralitos Brewing, and I believe it's also in the 13 range, if I'm not mistaken. We'll find out when we come back.
I
It's
don't know
Smoking
why. I
and
just
Toasting.
love boozy beers. Actually, I know why. I love boozy beers.
Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. We are live at B&B Butchers and Restaurant, and we're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth, and at BB Lemon right across the street from the Houston location. We have done some tasting already, and I normally try to structure our beer tastings so that we go from the lowest ABV to the highest, but I have to apologize because we went 13.4 on the Island Diaries, and now we're actually going to take a step all the way back to 12% for the Aminal. I know I've disappointed you, Ian, and I apologize.
Yeah, you're the worst. The worst.
Aminal comes from Coralitos Brewing Company. It is a bourbon barrel-aged Barleywine-Style ale. And
Aminal is a barley wine that spent 9 months in bourbon barrels, resulting in a complex range of flavors that will age incredibly well. Notes of dark fruit, whiskey, toffee, and a touch of oak are balanced together nicely. Drink it now or tuck it away. It says right here on the
now,
bottle.
I'm very curious to see how this will work, as I still have a little bit of the 20th left. Very curious to see how this will work with the rum, since it's aged not in rum barrels but in whiskey barrels. So that'll be an interesting.
I don't
an interesting
understand how you
comparison.
have a little of that 20th left.
It was because I was concentrating on the 2007.
That 2007 is something special, man. That's
Yeah, boy, it
you,
really
you don't
is.
run into a rum like that all the time.
No, you really don't, and it's probably best that you don't run into a rum like that. I may run into you all the time.
Indeed. No,
Absolutely.
it was a very rough go learning to appreciate overproof spirits.
It was it?
Yes.
Yeah, but see,
Well,
that's
here's
that's
the
what
thing.
you love, though.
It is. Well, and it's ironic, especially, I've even gotten flack. People have seen me either on the show or here at the restaurant or out. Even with my whiskeys, like I don't subscribe to necessarily to the big rock. And I think we've talked about this. I like the smaller cubes. When people say, "Oh, as such a whiskey and spirit aficionado, like what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, if you know me well enough, you know that what's in that glass is probably at minimum 110,
Right.
and then I'm probably going to have 4 of them. So, in order for us to all have a good time." it should probably have a little bit of dilution, a little bit of cooling out.
Let's address rocks for just a moment. A lot the big spheres and the big cubes
Sure.
are awesome looking. They're great, and I enjoy that in a drink. But
It
what
does
that
make great photographs.
right, and what that does to your spirit is it has it doesn't melt as fast.
Yes.
It
So you
basically
get
keeps
cooling
your
without
drink nice
dilution.
and cold with less dilution in your spirit, which is also okay. A lot of people like to drink it neat. And that's fine too, but don't be snooty about it, because the truth is there's almost no distiller that I've met that won't tell you to open up their spirit with a little bit of water.
Absolutely.
Now, the small ice, frankly, when I'm at home and if I have the opportunity, you go by Sonic and get that
The
Sonic
Pebble
ice, the little pebble ice.
It's the best.
Man, you can tailor your
Sure.
drink perfect. And I like the ride that you get when you try a spirit. I always try it neat first.
Sure.
And then I add some of that ice, but I love to taste the way the flavor changes from when you first put the ice in and it's not diluted, and then it gets super cold. And there's different flavors that pop out. It masks some flavors but brings out some other flavors.
And especially when you're dealing I would use like this rum, for example. Like if you go into this single cask 2007 that we just tried, and you put the big cube in it, right? It's going to get really cold. It's not going to dilute. When you talk about the flavors, what's going to happen is all that oiliness is going to tighten up,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, you just think the science of it congeals, etc. It's the idea of the cloudiness. Like when we did the 100th episode, I had that Balmoral Garrison
Yeah.
Brothers,
Yes,
and
you
when it
did.
got cold, it looked like espresso,
yeah.
and that's all that oily, viscous, all those congeners, pulling back together. So what ends up happening is they're going to taste different because they're going to release differently as they get under your tongue, and now your tongue is going to raise that temperature to 98.6. etc. So there's a lot that happens in cooling and drinking and diluting. I personally,
But cooling and diluting are actually two different things.
absolutely, and that's
Yes.
why therein lies the ice debate. Is and that's why typically in their origins, the big cubes were designed for cocktails so that the cocktail would maintain the consistency of flavor throughout the drinking of it without becoming watery as you went through. So with whiskeys, there's advantages and I think disadvantages to both sides of it.
Yes.
Jeremiah, let me ask you this before we go further. When Ian and I came to dinner here,
Yes.
we both enjoyed one of your private barrels that
Yes,
you have
the
here.
Elijah Craig 12 here.
It was
Oh,
Elijah
so
Craig 12 year.
good. It was
So
so good.
what's interesting is that Ian, as is typical of how he ordered his with ice, and I ordered mine neat. What was interesting is that we shared the glasses
Sure.
between us, and I will tell you that it almost tasted like two completely different spirits.
Indeed.
And they were both delicious. Like
Absolutely.
I loved it both
But
ways.
you'll also notice that generally, even though I order with ice, there's usually not much ice left in the glass, if any. I usually will nurse a drink and warm it with my hand as the ice dilutes, because I want to taste that full ride from neat to ice cold, and then all the way back down to fully diluted and not as cold. Because all those flavors, they just keep changing and evolving.
Sure.
And it just, to me, that's just a wonderful
Well, and at the end of the day,
experience.
before we jump back into Docs, for me, as the seller on the consumer level, people will kind of like at me when somebody orders some of the more premium whiskeys we have. Say somebody orders a 30-year single malt, I'm still going to bring you water. I'm going to bring you soda. I'm going to bring you ice on the side, all these things with it, because at the end of the day, like how you enjoy it is not up to me.
Absolutely.
And I'm not here to tell someone, oh, well, this is the true way. I can walk you through, which is basically what you do, kind of how I would do it, which is start with neat, add water, then cool it, then dilute it,
Right.
and try the process. But at the end of the day, if you want to drink your 30-year with soda and a bunch of Pebble ice, that's great. As long as you're drinking brown, I'm good.
as long as it works for you. And see,
Absolutely.
I've always been about this in music. I always hated when people would tell you that one form of music was good and one form was shite. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like it's like if it works for you,
Yeah.
if it's what makes you happy, go for it. Like don't take your musical cues from someone else.
Yeah, there's an army of parrot heads that would argue that whatever works for them works.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And you know what? If they're getting that level of enjoyment out of paying for those tickets and going to that show, and that's like I've often said, by the way, that Jimmy Buffett's a genius because
He is.
he came up with a way to let the average person for about $100 spend 2.5 hours on a tropical island
Absolutely.
somewhere without leaving the comfort of their own neighborhood. I think it's genius, and you know what? I enjoy that experience a little
Absolutely.
bit myself.
My mother is a head through and through. Lives in Tampa like every time. Man.
I will say though, just as an aside, I got a little bit burned out on the whole Jimmy Buffett thing when I lived in Panama City, Florida, because when you live in a beach town like that, every time you go into a bar or a restaurant, there's some asshole on a stool called Captain Something or other with
Just
an acoustic guitar.
friends.
Yeah, it's just,
Remember Waves?
It's burnout. It's
Remember
burnout.
Waves here in Houston?
Yes.
My cousin, Greg Norman, he owns Coach's Sports Bar down there in downtown. He used to work at Waves, and to this day, he will not let us play Jimmy Buffett anything.
Yes,
anytime. He'll
it
still out the room,
happens.
man.
It happens. So.
That's on the debate of ice, though. I would like to interject one thing on
Sure.
that. And for me personally, such a stupid phrase. For me, it's about the cleanliness of the ice,
Absolutely.
not so much the shape or the size.
What water it's made from,
Exactly.
how well it's made.
You know, I've had some times where I've been to some bars where just this is God, I'm popping my P's again. Sorry, Doug. This is before I started working for Maison Ferrand.
Pre-Pierre Ferrand.
And there was one taste in particular that I started out with bourbon. It wasn't tasting right. Just not getting my buds just right. And so I moved on to Irish. Wasn't hitting my buds right. I moved on to Scotch. Wasn't hitting my buds right. And I realized it was not the whiskey. It was the ice.
Yeah.
It was this whatever ice maker in the back, just Coca-Cola at Astroworld ice.
Right.
It makes a huge difference. And, you know, for me, the easiest solution is fat ice. They sell it at
Absolutely.
Specs, and it's made by Javier Flores
It
in
is
Austin.
wonderful.
Fat ice is incredible.
And you can get it at the main location.
And then
Some other
I
ones, you know.
hear it. We go through an ice company called Vault
Right.
that you can get through just because I can get it through Cisco. But same thing. It comes pre-cut. It's perfectly clear. It's 100%. Distilled water. I mean, it is just gorgeous.
I'll also mention that what's really important, particularly when you are out, is the glass. The glass. I poured myself a beer the other day. I was at home, poured it into a glass that I got out of the freezer, and I was like, something is not right. This beer is not like. There was a flavor in there that I could not have imagined they would put into the beer. So I set it aside, pulled out another glass, poured. It was one of those tall cans, so I hadn't poured the whole thing in. Regular glass hadn't gotten washed properly.
Soap residue.
Left in it, whatever. So when I wash my beer glasses at home, because I love putting the beer glasses into the freezer, because as you know, I like my beer cold, I make sure I wash them thoroughly, and then I change the water to cold, and I rinse them for a good solid 30 seconds to a minute in cold water to make sure all that soap is out of there. I've seen bars where I'm watching the bartender behind the bar wash the glasses by dunking it into soapy water and barely rinsing it before setting it up there. That is going to mess with the taste of your cocktail or your spirit or your beer.
That's also another difference between me and you on beer. I do not really like a frozen glass. To me,
I was going to ask if you get flack from the listeners about that. 'Cause,
All the time. All the time.
It should be a room temperature
No,
glass.
and I
Cruz.
understand that, and I appreciate room temperature beer. I enjoy, tasting beer at that temperature, but I enjoy drinking beer when it's cold. That's just me.
I'm a Texan. What's your favorite kind of beer?
You're going to catch some flack on the Houston Room Temperature Glass Society, man. They're brutal.
That's not a good thing.
There's that.
They are
There's
some
that.
salty dudes.
Ian, I see you have already made your way partly into the Aminal, so I'm curious as to what your research has.
Which has brought to me this. This is completely different on the first sip of this was startling. It's so coffee and so bitter dark cherry.
By the way, I'd like to thank whoever that is that's backing up and has been backing up for the last hour and
Can you hear that
45 minutes, apparently in a nearby
It's,
parking lot.
That's
construction.
actually Jeremiah's alarm clock.
That's right.
I'm sorry.
But
I interrupted you. Please
this is
continue.
so dark cherry bitter and chocolate and espresso. Overall, if you ask me, this has so many different little things going on, but the bitterness I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's a nice, easy bitter.
And what's
bitter
funny,
and chocolate and coffee.
Yeah, and it
kind of-
goes right across the backside of your
and the
palate.
interesting thing is, my very first sip of this was startling. It was so bitter, but not in a bad way. And then after I drink more and more of this, that bitterness goes away. It's super silky, on the mouthfeel, which is just a joy. The bubbles are super tiny, super perfect. And this goes down way too easy for 12%.
I hated the first sip, but it's since we've been talking, it's opened up. It's like the flavors had a moment to just kind of marry together, and now it's a much more. I don't want to say palatable because that's another way of saying now I can drink it. It's a much tastier brew now.
I will also mention, as the cold beer guy, that this has gotten better as it has warmed up. It's one of those beers that definitely the flavors connect better. I think I hesitate to say this, but I think this would be the winner for me
I would
out
concur
of the
for
show,
the day.
the Island Diaries. But the Aminal is it's pretty darn good. It's just so different. If we hadn't had this one, I'm wondering if we'd be raving more about the barley wine.
You know, I poured a second glass, not because I really wanted the flavor or anything by any means. No, it was because of research. And just to try it and see if that initial bitterness that hit me was there, and it's not. What's interesting about this is this kind of like a lot of
it's on your
cigars.
palate?
That first light is a little harsh, or sometimes a good whiskey is even like that. That first sip is a little harsh, and then you get used to it. This has that, and this is a lot boozier tasting than the Island Diaries, which is actually boozier than this. But I like
By
it.
a percentage and a quarter, but yeah.
Well, but the booziness comes across a little more on this. You get a little bit of that warmth in the back, in the chest.
Well, I also just wonder if that part of that is the booziness and the flavor qualities between a rum barrel and a bourbon barrel. Could be.
I like on both of them. I love the oakiness, especially in this Island Diaries. The oakiness on that and the stringency and the aftertaste is so good. This one here has a little bit less of that, but the oakiness is a little more like 3/4 of the way through the palate, not at the very end, and so it hits the palate slightly different.
I'll just mention that
I'm for it.
The 20th, and then back to the Island Diaries was a really interesting experience, bringing out the sort of banana bread sort of flavor, the breadiness of the beer, going from the Aminal back to the 20th. The 20th really got almost sugar cookie sweet. It was just a very pleasant way, not in a overly sort of sickly sweet kind of way, but it was almost like a dessert. It was so sugary.
Well, so the Aminal though, like if you're a fan of that dark cherry bitterness, that Aminal is absolutely 100%.
The problem is, you order it at a bar, the bartender's going to say, "I think you've had enough."
Yeah,
I have Aminal.
Aminal.
That's a good point. But then again, that could probably be said a lot of times by the final
it
segment of this program.
It completely crushes my cigar, by the way.
Yeah, it does. It really does. In a way that the Island Diaries did not do.
Right.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, Docs, I want to, before we close out the show, I think you have a couple of things that we should absolutely be thinking about tasting here.
You know, just like on the plantation side, we're always thinking of new things that we can do at Cognac Ferrand. You know, we have a respect for tradition, but we're not necessarily bound to it. We do like to go outside of the normal lines, color outside the lines, as it were. And the best case example of that has always been our Renegade Barrel series. Now, if you guys remember the Renegade Barrel number 1,
yes.
It was the cognac that was finished in the Sauterne cask, and that one unfortunately has run out. But we still have some of the Renegade Barrel number 2, and this is a true story. I stole the last 152 cases in France. They're very upset with me right now, and they're all in Texas now. So we got the last of it available in the world, and it just landed in Texas. So ask for it at your favorite retailer while you can. So. Renegade Barrel number 2. Jeremiah, would you mind pouring? And if I find a cognac glass, I should be okay with that. So I want to talk about it, if I may. So the reason why we call it the Renegade, and the very first one we did, when Alexander said at the BNIC meeting in Cognac, which we're a member of, that he wanted to do this, some of the older statesmen there told him, you can't do that. You can't age cognac in Sauterne cask. And, you know, he told him, yes, you can. We've done the research. We've looked. As long as it's French, as long as it's oak, we can do it and still call it cognac. And they said, well, if you do this, you'll be a Renegade. And I was like, yeah, well, you know, so hence,
there you have it.
A Renegade Barrel.
Thank you, sir.
That was the Renegade number 1. And the Renegade Barrel number 2 remember when Alexander first told me about this. This one we're actually finishing or extra aging in chestnut cask, not oak. So
Chestnut.
We can't even call it cognac. It's Pierre Ferrand Eau de Vie de Vin made with Pierre Ferrand cognac.
Wow.
And this is a funny story. When the first time Alexander told me about this, we were at dinner at Tales of the Cocktail 3 years ago, and he's telling me about it. He goes, if we were to call this cognac, I could possibly go to jail for 5 months. And I said,
Wow.
do it. We'll call it the Pierre Ferrand Sacrifice. And he was not going for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, easy for you to say.
Yeah, I mean, come on. No one will ever forget this, man. You're the man that went to jail for his passion. So, anyway, we didn't call it that. He's still a free man for now.
Shocking.
For now, yes.
But the flavor profile on this one, that chestnut cask, really just, it woods up that cognac. I call this one the single malt drinker's cognac. Bottled at 94 proof? Embarrassing.
I don't know that I've ever had anything that was aged in a chestnut barrel before.
Probably not.
This is unique. It's very unique.
It's
Chestnut wood barrel.
94.2 proof. 94.2 proof.
It has a bit of a predictable profile in the fact that you know what you're drinking is cognac-like. How's that?
Yeah.
But the finish on this and the something in the last third of the palate in here is very unique. It's very different. The woodiness is huge.
It's
like
very
you said.
whiskey-like.
Yeah, and I feel like there's also like, and maybe this is just me being fortunate enough to have had some of the actual eau de vie, but I feel like I get more of a sense of the essence of the distillate out of this one than I have out of some of the other
Now
ones.
that is very interesting.
And
Yeah.
maybe, like I said, maybe that's just me, my own like head working, but I really feel like you can get like the sense of like the actual like raw grapiness of the actual cognac along with the wood, and I mean it's just very unique. This is
What is,
Well, and that's what we're shooting for is unique. Go ahead.
what is the proof on this?
94.2.
It's also very interesting where the heat on this shows up as well, because the heat shows up right behind the front of the tongue, like just behind
Numbs
it.
the lips a little bit.
Yeah, and then it's gone for the rest of the palate, and then comes back as a warm little
Kind of on that middle of the tongue when it comes back.
just a warm little hey, you just had something, you know.
And it is lovely with an ice ball. A clean ice ball. Orange
bet.
ice block. Cube. Bought
Nice.
by Fat
Fat
Ice.
Ice.
Available at specs made by
So
Hot
I
Air
would
Boys.
assume that if you put this on ice and chill it, you're going to get a lot more of the grapiness out of it.
No question about it. I keep my microphone. It'll open up and you will get more of that cognac-y grape skin for sure.
Yeah, the
No
grape skin
question
kind
about
of thing. And then as it waters down, I can almost project that you're going to get those warmer flavors that show up underneath there.
I mean
This one's going for like $70, $80 wherever you
this
can
is
find it.
without question one of the most expressive cognacs I've had. It's
What we were shooting for, and then that's just, we don't want to just publish another bottle just for the sake of having more space
Just 'cause you call it Renegade
more
barrel
real
and
estate
it's
on the
cool.
shelf.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything we do is going to be done just like similar with Plantation. We want every bottle very different. This one we're going with a lot more dry cellar cognac, slightly heavier leans than on the Hombre. The age was 5 to 7 years old with a 25-year-old Bonificateur.
I'm going to say I lit earlier one of my go-to cigars. I've reviewed this on the show before, so I didn't make a big deal out of it, but I had brought along one of the A.J. Fernandez, A. Chapman by A.J. Fernandez, and one of the reasons this is a go-to for me is because it's relatively inexpensive, but still incredibly complex. And what's interesting about the Renegade Barrel Number 2 is it actually makes this more complex than it was. I'm in my brain still deciphering the flavors that I'm getting out of the cigar when paired with this. So
You gotta love when you find a cigar and spirit pairing that go a little bit beyond both of the entities,
and they go
create
beyond
something
just
new.
Yeah, they go beyond just like that works well together.
Yeah.
When one really enhances
well,
the
that's
other.
always. I was just saying that's the thing is you're always looking for enhancement, not
Right.
just a pairing.
Right.
Does this make this better?
Might I suggest, gentlemen, smoking and toasting the app?
Yes. Well, yeah, we need
You're
to
like
start talking
Vivino.
about
You take the pictures
with-
of the cigars, the
Show you
pictures of the
which cigar goes.
bottles.
Which all I want is 10%, guys. That's all I want. So I have one more thing for y'all,
Okay.
and I actually have a gift for y'all. Don't let us fade out before I give you the gift. But this is the 10 generations. Now, I mentioned before,
Look at the cool bottle on that.
That is as cool as
Well,
it can be.
this is 10 generations, and it's to honor 10 generations of Ferrand family making cognac. Although this
What we got here?
Unfortunately, this ended with Eli Ferrand X back in World War I. But even though Alexander Gabriel is the owner of the company and the master blender, he is not part of the Ferrand family. But the pride that he has in the Ferrand name is just unbelievable. He might as well be. And so we call it 10 generations. Now, remember I mentioned earlier that the Renegade Barrel number 1 is gone for good? Mm-hmm. This is a distant cousin to it. Go ahead and pour it. So it's also going to be similar to the Renegade 1, finished in Sauternes cask, though the cognac is going to be a little different from what we used with the original Renegade Barrel number 1. Also, it's only 92 proof, where Renegade Barrel, I believe, was 96 proof.
Right.
And it's going to be closer to the Ombre as far as the 4 to 6 year old with the 12-year-old Bonificateur, with that extra year in the Sauternes cask. And now that bottle you're seeing right there is not a legit United States. That one I brought back from France. It will be a 750, but it's going to be coming here later this year. We will have this in a.
I have to show this bottle though, because this bottle is
It's
so
so
cool.
cool.
Well,
and
look
unique.
closely at the vines, and you'll see the
You
faces.
see the faces, yes. I
you see
noticed
the
that
faces
earlier.
of the 10 generations of
That's
Ferrand.
awesome.
That's fantastic. All right, so
So later this year, and you really do get that. I keep lowering my mic. You still get that nice sensation Sauternes finish that you got from Renegade Barrel number 1.
this is really delicious. Wow. And so different from the Renegade. So different.
Well, you get this
It's
one.
so much bigger on the tongue, so much rounder.
This one will appeal to the whiskey drinker also, but you still know you're drinking cognac on this
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
one. Where the Eau de Vie d'Avon,
Much more
it takes
so
you a
than-
minute to
yeah.
identify the spirit. You know?
Absolutely.
Right. No, with the Renegade Barrel, I almost would have believed you if you had told me it was a whiskey. With this one, it's absolutely a cognac from the very first, from the very first note. You know?
But it has that, again, it's so big on the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
This
Especially
one-
like as you give it that chew, it feels like it kind of expands.
And
in
the
your palate.
mouthfeel is just
It's
fantastic.
Well,
amazing.
this one's funny because it bursts right up front in the palate.
Yep.
And then just keeps going and
Yeah.
expanding. It doesn't have a ride. It just keeps going. It's really interesting.
I'd just like to point out, by the way, how incredibly lucky we are that all of us who are sitting here at this table do something for a living that involves us being able to say bursts onto the palate as a part of our jobs.
I just like to say big fat mouthfeel.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a little more lowbrow, you know.
Yeah, but it works
That was
for
going to
you.
be my Twitter handle.
It works for you, Jeremiah.
That's the other name.
totally
That's my
works
other
for you.
Jamaican ska band. Is Big
All right.
Fat Mouthfeel.
So I'm-
Okay, so this is available when?
Probably later this year. We're still waiting on approval from the feds on the 750 bottle.
And
which,
it's
you know,
10
it's a-
generations. Cru de Cognac.
So and ended it with Eli Ferrand X, who unfortunately died without an heir in World War I. But the one that really put us on the map was Eli Ferrand VIII, a very influential gentleman. He was rubbing shoulders with James Hennessy and the owners of the family behind those larger companies, and was very influential, very instrumental in a lot of things that we see in cognac today, including, quite frankly, the fix to the what do you call it, the phylloxera. The fix to phylloxera was grafting North American roots from Texas to the European vines that made the vines resistant to the pest. And now they had been doing this in South France for a while, and he got wise to what they were doing, and he convinced the other cognac makers, let's try this here, and it worked.
Wow.
Sort of. It worked initially, but the vines were growing too tight, and the fruit was dying. So a new grape was invented, a cousin of the Trebbiano grape, which is the most widely used one, Uni Blanc, which we're 90% use Uni Blanc. That was a grape that was created to grow better. The vines wouldn't get so tight. Interesting
because
stuff, right?
science.
That's pretty awesome.
Science.
And and Denton was foiled again.
And then- take that,
So-
Texas.
Yes,
All right, I said I have gifts. I mentioned Eli Ferrand VIII, and I only brought two, so you two are going to have to share one for Jeremiah here. This is
but
the
check it
book
out.
that our historian, a guy named Jacques Blanc, and with Alexander Gabriel wrote on the Ferrand family. I'll bring you another one.
Wow.
And it's just basically the life and times of a cognac maker, Eli Ferrand VIII. a lot of interesting information, not just the history of our company, but just the history of cognac. And,
Fascinating.
you're going to talk about, it won't talk about our brands, because quite frankly, our brands didn't exist back then. But it's just more about what I've always said that we are the beneficiary of a man who literally planted his roots in the best place in the world to make cognac. And if not for him, we would not be sitting here right now.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, it's
is
a gorgeous
amazing.
book. Gorgeous book. And perfect for the coffee table.
You put legs on it, it will be the coffee
It would be
table.
the coffee-
That's awesome.
Well,
like there's something about picking up a book like this size, and
Yes.
leafing through it in your comfy chair. You know,
No,
Like-
it feels rather luxurious, kind of the way the cognac feels. Which is,
And that's what that's what we were shooting for there. If you look closely at the F's right there, that's our new secondary logo there, the
Nice.
Ferran
I see that
with the
embossed
Zorse on
in
it.
yes, nice.
that's
nice.
really beautiful.
Well, a big part of it seems so cliche to say that something is all about the good life. But in the end, that's really what the show is about. It's about things that we enjoy that kind of take life to the next level, whether it's fantastic spirits or great cigars or really, really
Fantastic
good craft
spirits,
beers.
treat yourself.
Yeah.
Good cigars, treat yourself.
I can't think of a better way to end the show than that. But I do want you to quickly tell us about B&B Italiano.
So BB Italia, yeah, we
Or BB Italia, okay.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's the newest addition to the Berg Hospitality Group. It's out there, Memorial Dairy Ashford. But handmade pastas. It's a very traditional Italian menu. So it's the courses, the antipasti, the primi, the secondi. Really, really amazing bar setup, beautiful cocktails.
How's the French gin selection?
It's pretty good. It could be better. Obviously, it's not as good as here at B&B. But no, amazing. Ben brought his brother Daniel in. They literally hand make all the pastas. We actually started using them for all of our pastas throughout Berg Hospitality.
Nice.
But it is absolutely phenomenal. I actually was just up there on Tuesday, and it was the first time I'd seen the finished renovated building, and it is gorgeous. It's huge, but it's very, very warm. It's got a really, really nice bar, which is, obviously
open?
I believe that we just had our big party last night, and you can now reach out and make reservations on Open Table. But it's phenomenal. It's just something different, but it's so family. It's just a very
It's got
warm
that family
place.
Italian vibe, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Love it.
Absolutely, very Italian
those
themed
kind of
cocktails. Aperol spritzes on tap.
Nice.
Grappa?
Grappa. I actually just put together a grappa list. I don't believe that they've implemented the full grappa list quite yet. Baby steps. But it will have a very nice selection of Amaros. Monique from BB Lemon, did most of the cocktails over there. It's just, we couldn't be more pleased with how it's starting to pan
Well,
out.
I love Italian. If it's the quality of everything else, y'all guys, it's going to be a home run for sure.
I mean, I can't tell you enough. I tasted some of the pastas, and they're so delicate. I mean, it's very clear that they're handmade. It's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Now, just for the geeks out there, do you actually employ bistro math? Nobody knows that joke, do
Bistro
they?
math?
I don't know the joke.
You'd have to be a Douglas Adams fan. Never mind.
Oh,
Gotcha,
okay.
gotcha. Well, I'm a moderate Douglas Adams fan, and to the extent that I know for sure who he is. But yeah, we couldn't be more excited about it. They also have BB pizza to go. So at some point
Nice.
they're going to
I
have
bet that's
a little
amazing.
takeout pizza addition to it. But yeah, we're really, really happy, and I wish I could tell you more, but there's more coming.
So, Jeremiah, can we have you on to do a grappa show in the future?
That would be amazing.
Are you knowledgeable with grappa?
Grappa is one of the most underappreciated spirits,
Well,
and as a
I
guy
really
who loves all things rocket fuel,
Yes.
Just so
it
you
is
know,
so.
I truly underappreciate grappa.
Yeah?
We'll
Meaning
change
that
that.
you don't like it? Or
I've
that-
tried it a couple times, and it's not
You
my
haven't had good
palate.
grappa.
we'll get you squared away. I
But,
assure
yeah,
you.
okay,
All
we'll
right.
see.
So that's why I thought it deserved a show,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
there's something to be said for it, but yeah, it could be a little off-putting.
Yes, well, they have a patio there as well, so we'll figure out doing a grappa show,
It's
and we'll actually do one at BB
challenging.
Italian.
to appreciate.
No, that's what you said
I
about
mean-
Malort. Grappa and Malort
Okay, first
are
of
not
all,
in the
Malort-
same, not in
Malort
the
is
same
fantastic.
universe.
It's
in
shock
its
value
terribleness.
spirits,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's called craptastic.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, there's a gangload of people that.
Well, the best thing about Malort is when you try for the first time and people are disappointed that you're not more grossed out.
Yeah,
Is that gross? I'm like, that's gross. But isn't it really gross?
Yeah,
That's gross.
the first time somebody brought me Malort, I was like, okay, it's like rotten Fernet. It ain't that bad.
Yeah.
Like,
First time someone brought me Malort, it was Ian. So that tells you all that.
That
you
was
need to
hilarious.
know.
I said, don't worry, I'll get the spirits this week.
Yeah. What was it that
was the first time I questioned
was
my
it your
friendship
friend
with
or
Ian.
your brother that had the perfect description for Malort? It wasn't that it was.
Oh no, it was
good.
my friend. He said, no,
Yeah.
it's not bad. It's challenging to appreciate.
Challenging to
distilled
appreciate.
from corpses, you know?
Yeah. Well, we want to thank everybody involved. Thanks to Adam on the Wheels of Steel for making the show happen. Doc, it is always such a pleasure to have you on because, honestly, we have a lot of different spirit reps on, and I think I learn more from you. Maybe it's because I'm such a fan of rum, and I know so little about cognacs, but it feels like I learn more from you than just about anybody we have on the show, present company except.
Because he's Docs, man.
I will
honestly,
say
though, but
also-
where do you think that I begin to like delve in? And I'm not trying to toot Doc's horn, but literally, without my meeting Docs in the right situation with the right people that I was working with, I can honestly say that like it was very much a kickstart to my spirit rabbit hole.
Wow.
Like he took me to my first tales where I went to the seminar, The Art of Aperitif, and it super hungover on absinthe, was drinking Chinar, and
a monster was born.
I'm telling you,
A
it
monster
really,
was born.
it's very legitimately true. So I would like to thank Docs publicly for that.
It might be that Island beer talking, but I'm starting to tear up here, guys. You're
You know, Docs, and
I'm getting all
I told you it
dewy-eyed.
was emotional.
the
Emotional beer.
spirits you bring today are ones that I'm not as familiar with. So I just want to let you know, in the words of Madonna, you made me feel shiny and new.
That's the way to end.
That is the way to end the show. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers.